Chapter 51, On the Train to Magnolia. Thief. After Evan's voice fell, Gildarts, Makarov and the others turned their gazes around, and looked at the brat who was caught by Evan. Damn it, there's no other way. The thief knew that he had been exposed, but fortunately he did not hide. He took out a capsule from his pocket and stuffed it into his mouth. In an instant, the thief's world changed, as if time had stopped in the thief's eyes. As long as there is a potion developed by the Bureau of Magical Development that allows me to use 1 second as 30 seconds, I will never be caught. Sure enough, being a thief is right. The thief smiled confidently, and then prepared to break free from Evan's little hand holding his wrist. The thief pulling back vigorously, but Evan didn't move at all, his hand was still firmly on the thief's arm. Hey! The thief was taken aback for a moment. He thought he didn't use enough strength, and then began to pull desperately. However, no matter how hard the thief tried, he couldn't break free from Evan's wrist. What? There's such a thing. After the thief found that he couldn't break free from Evan's wrist no matter what, he opened his mouth wide in surprise, his eyes full of disbelief. Damn it, if that's the case, won't I definitely be caught? Or else? The thief looked at Evan's wrist, and felt ruthless. He took out a dagger from his pocket and pointed it at Evan's wrist, as if he was about to strike. Suddenly, he let go of the dagger in his hand. Never mind. I'm just a thief. If I continue, it will be against my profession. A trace of relief flashed in the thief's eyes, as if he had given up resisting. For you are wise, in the end, you saved yourself. Just as the thief was about to give up his resistance, a scene that made the thief's hair stand on end happened. Evan, who was supposed to frozen in place, suddenly spoke. You can keep up with my speed. The thief's eyes widened after hearing what Evan said. Isn't that an obvious thing? Evan said, shaking out all the things the thief had stolen, scattered them all over the floor, then let go of her hand, and said to the thief, for the last 5 seconds, go to the guards and surrender. I thought you would let me go. After hearing what Evan said, the thief was taken aback for a moment. He thought that Evan would let him go directly. I only asked you to surrender, I wouldn't let you go. If you know who we are, you should be glad. I just asked you to turn yourself into the soldiers. Or I take you to the soldiers. When Evan said this, his voice paused for a moment. According to their fairy tales habit, they usually beat people violently before sending them to the soldiers. Normally, the soldiers would directly send the gangsters to the hospital for emergency treatment. I see. The thief looked into Evan's eyes, his expression trembled, and he nodded repeatedly. You take care of yourself, don't force me to personally send you to prison. As Evan said, he let go of the thief's arm. The thief trembled, watching Evan let go of his arm, and immediately walked away. As the thief ran away, the pill's effect also ended. By the time the people around Evan came to their senses, they could only see things scattered in place and the thief who had disappeared into the crowd. I asked him to surrender himself. Evan turned around and spoke to Makarov and the others. Since this is your decision, Evan, that's fine. Anyway, have you found all the things that kid stole? Makarov smiled kindly at Evan. Hey, if that kid doesn't turn himself and continues to steal things, it's all your fault, Evan. Gildarts smiled meanly at Evan. Obviously these two people also noticed what happened. Regarding this, Evan didn't say anything. He added a positioning and observation technique to the thief just now. If he saw that the thief didn't turn himself into the soldiers, or was still breaking the law, just like what he said, he will personally send the thief to the prison, but then it will be more than a simple matter of sending him to the prison. Just as Gildarts looked at Evan with a half-smile, a man with a blonde hair and wearing a suit with 4 or 5 bodyguards, picked up a wallet on the ground, so it turns out that my wallet wasn't lost, but stolen. Opened it and looked it over, then smiled slightly, and at the same time bowed slightly to Evan and the others to thank him. Thank you for helping me find the lost items. Excuse me, is there anything I can do for you? No problem, sir. To be honest, the money in the wallet is actually fine, but there is a precious photo of my daughter in this wallet. This thing must never be lost. The businessman with the golden hair opened the wallet and looked carefully at the pulled-out photo of a girl with a golden ponytail, and he was relieved after confirming that there was nothing wrong with the photo, and then asked Evan and the others, so I hope that I can use my way to repay everyone for finding this back. Is there anything I can do? No. Evan shook his head lightly. He saw the blonde girl in the photo in the businessman's hand just now. The girl's face made Evan thoughtful. Just when Evan wanted to answer that there was no need to, Makarov covered Evan's mouth. To tell you the truth, we are planning to buy a train ticket to the town of Magnolia in the west of the kingdom of Fiori. Hey! The blonde businessman was taken aback for a moment, then laughed, and at the same time said to his subordinates behind him, Haha, I understand. Go and buy tickets for these benefactors, ask for the best seats. These benefactors along the way will be thirsty, so all food and water should be bought. Yes. Several subordinates immediately ran to the ticket counter and bought tickets, food and water for Evan, Makarov, Gildarts, Gray, and Lion. Thank you. Makarov watched the blonde businessman shed tears of gratitude, and for a moment he didn't know which side was the benefactor. Haha, it's just a small effort, there is no need to thank me. Compared with your help to me, my rebate to you is not worth mentioning. The blonde businessman smiled lightly. At the same time, the train station sounded the sound of the train leaving. The train is leaving soon. See you there. Evan and the others heard the roar of the train, and hurried onto the train. Goodbye. The blonde businessman kept waving his hands towards the backs of Evan and the others. He didn't know why, but he seemed to have some premonition in his heart. He had a premonition that one day, he would meet Evan and the others again, and that day doesn't seem too far away. Interesting kid. The blonde businessman looked at the train going away, thoughtful, his premonition was always accurate. On the train. Don't grab my bento. You have your share, don't grab it. Your eel is mine. The bastard's eel bento is only one serving per person. What will I eat after you ate it? Go eat your own. Gildarts, Gray, and Lion kept fighting for the lunch boxes. Makarov, who was sitting across from the three of them, and Evan, and were speechless for a while. How about you eat mine? In order to try to stop this quarrel, Evan put his lunch box in front of the three of them. However, the three just casually glanced at Evan's bento, and then started to grab each other's again. It seems that the three of them only have each other's bento in their eyes. This kind of food that can be obtained without robbing is not delicious at all. Their focus has never been on eating bento, but on getting each other's bento, and keeping the other party from eating bento. Are you three elementary school students? Evan silently took back his lunchbox. Although Gray and Lion haven't stamped the seal of the Fairy Tale Guild yet, their synchronization rate with Fairy Tale has surpassed that of Evan, who joined Fairy Tale for nearly half a year. At the same time, in the small town of Foss, a young boy with fluffy hair and glasses, after making sure that Evan and the others were all in the car, took out a book, tore off a page, and folded it into a book. The little bird flew to the sky. Chapter 52, Circus Night. Meanwhile in Magnolia, the Dark Guild walked in the dark, and without anyone knowing, they lurked in the small town of Magnolia. Like a poisonous snake, they lurked and waited for an opportunity. President, there's news from ahead that Fairy Tale's Guild Master Makarov, the strongest Magister Gildarts, and that monster-like super rookie Evan are not in the guild now. In other words, said now is the perfect time for us to get revenge on Fairy Tale. In a basement, several people who looked like circus jugglers were holding a scroll in their hands, which recorded the actions of Makarov, Evan, and others. As soon as they got the news, they reported the situation to a man with exaggerated clown makeup. He. That is to say, no one is covering Fairy Tale's trash now? In that case, Carlo, Moon, take advantage of Makarov and others' absence, and take advantage of the town's upcoming festival. Go and make a fuss. Eliminate Fairy Tale, consider it our gift to this town. The man with the clown makeup laughed out loud, his eyes glistened with ferocity, and he couldn't wait to crush all of Fairy Tale to pieces. It is precisely because of this that they lurk here on the day of the Magnolia Harvest Festival. The goal is to make a big splash at the festival and completely destroy Fairy Tale and the festival in this town. But now that there is a better opportunity than the festival, they will naturally not let it go. Let those damn goblins who are self-righteous and always sabotage our guild's plans die. The guild master of the Dark Guild, who walks in the dark, has wrinkled brows and an incomparably distorted expression. His appearance is as disgusting as his disgusting magic power. Now he was furious at the thought of the damage Fairy Tale had done to them. He swore that in this life, he would wipe out these damned and annoying goblins. Yes, Guildmaster Kafuki. We will definitely not let you down. Give those goblins a hard time. Ha ha ha. The two mages, who were dressed like circus performers, bowed slightly to the clown-like guild master of the Circus Night Guild, Kafuki, before laughing and turned to leave. Their purpose for this operation is simple, to hunt those goblins. At the same time, fairy tale. It's been almost a month, right? I don't know if the guild master has found Evan. Macau was sitting in front of the bar, constantly drinking wine, looking sullen. What's wrong? Macau, don't you want to continue to be the acting guild master? Wakaba combed the nose of his massive protruding hair, and sat beside Macau. As soon as he opened his mouth, he heard Macau, and deliberately emphasized the pronunciation of the acting guild master. What kind of guild master am I? In this guild, no one listens to me at all. When Macau heard this, he looked helpless, and then he sighed. There was nothing he could do, mainly because his strength was too bad, and he couldn't hold down other members of the guild at all, especially Laxus, who had been advancing by leaps and bounds in recent days. In the absence of Evan, Makarov, and Gildarts, Urza was the only one who could say a few words to Laxus. As for what other people said, Laxus would always give a look of indifference. And compared to me, Urza is more like the guild master of this guild. Speaking of this, Macau felt another pain in his heart. His position in the guild had been completely surpassed by a newcomer who joined Fairy Tail less than a year ago. Ha ha ha. Since no one listens to you, then work hard to become stronger. As long as you can be as powerful as Evan or Gildarts, then Laxus will have to listen to you. After listening to Macau's words, Wakaba pointed out the way for his bad friend. Hey, hey! Do you think I don't want to become stronger? If things like becoming stronger can be done just by talking about them, then there won't be weak people in this world. After Macau finished speaking, he drank the wine in his glass in one gulp, ton ha. After drinking the beer in the glass, Macau showed a comfortable expression and shouted, cheer up. Tisk, you don't go out to work all day long, but drink in the guild every day, is that possible? Wakaba looked at Macau, who kept pouring wine into his mouth, and asked. Ha ha ha. How much money do you think I made back then? Even if I don't go out to work for half a year, my savings are enough. After hearing Wakaba's words, Macau laughed loudly. He made a small fortune in the gambling game before, so he didn't have to do those dangerous tasks at all. Stop talking, it's more uncomfortable for you to have money than to mock me. When Wakaba heard the words, he showed an extremely painful expression. What is a bad friend? This is probably called a bad friend. Pa. Just as Macau was chatting with Wakaba, the door of Fairy Tail was suddenly pushed open. Two people in funny circus costumes walked in, looked at the chaotic guild and laughed, ha ha ha, is this Fairy Tail here? What a bunch of bastards! I really don't know how a bunch of trash repeatedly destroy our good deed of circus night. Ha! Hearing what these two people said, everyone in Fairy Tail, who was resting, immediately turned around and looked away. Helium balloons. Without waiting for Macau, Wakaba, and others to react to the two jugglers, these two members of the circus night who made the Fairy Tail members mistake them for performers immediately released their magic. In an instant, Macau and the others were surrounded by a transparent balloon, which carried them into the sky. What? The dizzy Macau and Wakaba didn't expect someone to cast magic on them so suddenly, they had no time to deal with it. Explode. Boom. In the next second, the floating balloons exploded in the sky. More than 30 members stationed in the guild were directly attacked by this unavoidable explosion, and collapsed to the ground. The hall of the guild was extremely messy, with countless tables and chairs smashed to pieces. Goodbye. Fairy Tail. The two people in funny circus costumes looked at the broken guild, let out a burst of laughter, and then prepared to leave. Hey! Where are you bastards planning to go? Just as the two were about to leave, Macau, who was covered in extensive burns, walked out of the smoke and looked at the circus duo in a state of embarrassment. Hey! Are you kidding me? You have endured this level of magic unpreparedly and suffered such serious injuries and can still stand up. The circus duo looked shocked at Macau, who was bleeding from the wound but still standing. Bastard, don't underestimate me. Guildmaster Makarov entrusted the guild to me. Your level of magic just happens to sober me up. As Macau said, his hands instantly formed a magic circle, and the strange purple flames attacked the duo of the circus. Boom! Immediately, a fierce roar exploded in the Fairy Tail Guild. What's going on with this guy? Why can't he be defeated no matter what? It's like a mad dog. Along with the sound of the explosion, there were also the puzzled shouts of the circus night mages. Chapter 53, 100 Times Back. 1 hour later. After completing the mission and returning with a full load, Urza pulled her luggage cart back to the guild. When she stood at the gate of the guild, she frowned slightly. Today's guild is a little too quiet. You must know that the members of Fairy Tale will never stop their restlessness. Especially the time right now is the time to finish eating. Under normal circumstances, Fairy Tale is the busiest time, and it is the busiest time of the day. This is really weird, I hope nothing happens. Thinking of this, Urza stretched out her hand and gently pushed open the door of the guild. Hey! What's going on here? Urza looked at the stumbling guild members in the guild, as well as countless broken wooden tables and chairs, and the wooden floor with many holes. Urza's eyes widened in astonishment, and there was an unconcealable shock in her eyes. Cough, cough, cough. Just as Urza was thinking about what happened to everything in front of her eyes, bursts of coughing caught Urza's attention. Ah, you are! Urza followed the sound, and immediately saw a man who was slightly awake, lying under a broken table and chair. Urza, who saw the person in front of her, ran up immediately, and helped the man who was slowly waking up and coughing lightly from the ground, and asked, Wakaba, what's going on with the guild? What happened here when I left? Urza, is that you? You're finally back. Wakaba sat up gently with the support of Urza, and when he saw Urza's immature cheeks, he slowly breathed a sigh of relief. Wakaba doesn't know why, although Urza is only a 10-year-old child, but she can give everyone a sense of peace of mind, as if the other party is an adult. Maybe it is because of Urza's strong strength, or maybe it is because of Urza's other things. In short, with Urza around, Wakaba will feel very at ease. Someone attacked our guild. I recognized the logo of their guild. It's the Dark Guild Circus Night. These bastards planned to attack the guild when the guild master and Evan were away. Cough, cough, cough. When Wakaba said this, he continued to cough as if he had gotten too excited. Stop talking, take a break first, I'll go find Ms. Porliusika. Urza looked at Wakaba, who was coughing violently, and saw that the other party had suffered serious injuries. She frowned slightly, and while speaking, she wanted to run to the back of the guild to find an old friend of Guildmaster Makarov, that is, Ms. Porliusika, the doctor of the Fairy Tale Guild. After hearing Urza's words, Wakaba shook his head first, and then shouted anxiously. No, I'm good, Urza. Leave us alone, go and save Macau now. That idiot fought with the bastards who attacked the guild in order to protect us, because he was attacked earlier, with wounds on his body, he eventually lost to the enemy and was taken away by the enemy. Macau was taken away. Urza's heart tightened, the current situation directly exceeded Urza's expectation. That idiot is really too brave. Wakaba was a little helpless. In fact, he was also planning to rush forward to fight for his life, but his injuries were too serious and he couldn't get up. He could only watch Macau being knocked down and then taken away. At the same time, outside the gate of the Fairy Tale Guild, a boy with short blonde hair who was about to enter the guild stopped his steps with a gloomy expression after hearing the conversation between Macau and Urza, and turned to while looking at the street beside him. The young man felt the magic power remaining in the air, his eyes flashed with anger. Thunderbolts flickered around him as if confirming the boy's irritable mood. Urza, who was originally in the guild, seemed to feel something the moment the boy released the magic power. She suddenly turned her head and looked outside the gate, and said, Is that guy back? Not good. He has such a bad temper, he will probably rush to that dark guild alone and make a big fuss. Is it Laxus? That guy is back? Urza, don't even go to poor Lysica. After hearing Urza's words, Macau probably guessed that he was back. He frowned immediately, and persuaded Urza, go to Laxus quickly. Don't let that idiot act recklessly. After listening to Macau's words, Urza was silent for a while, and finally nodded vigorously, okay. After finishing speaking, Urza ran towards the outside of the guild. She chose to trust her guild members. Where are you going, Laxus? The blonde boy walked down the street with his hands in his pockets and a gloomy face. Behind the boy was Urza, who had just come out of the guild. Urza, this is the only time, don't stop me. I absolutely can't forgive those bastards who casually attack us Fairy Tale. Those bastards think just because without the old man, Evan, and the others, can run amok in Fairy Tale. Who do they think we are? The blonde boy was Laxus, who had just returned from the mission. He looked at Urza with indifference, and golden thunderbolts danced and shone on Laxus' shoulders. The enemies are very powerful. You can't deal with them alone. Urza looked at Laxus calmly and spoke. Urza, are you trying to stop me? If that's the case, then I'll knock you down first. Then I'll kill those bastards from the Dark Guild. As Laxus said, a stern look flickered in his eyes, and terrifying lightning flashed around him. No, you got it wrong, Laxus. Urza said as she walked in front of Laxus. Her face was equally gloomy, and she said coldly, let's go together. Urza. It was the first time Laxus saw Urza showing such an expression. He was taken aback for a moment, then the corners of his mouth slightly raised, then let's make a big fuss before the old man comes back. Let's give them an early sample for the annual harvest season, making Magnolia completely lively. Yet. Urza nodded slightly after hearing Laxus's words, and at the same time her eyes were fixed, the invisible domineering look wrapped around her. The guy who hurt the guild members is simply unforgivable. We must make them pay 100 times back. At the same time. Chapter 54, Rescue. The members of the Dark Guild hiding in a certain basement in Magnolia Town were having a carnival. Ha ha ha. This time Fairy Tale is a big shame. Not only did we smash the guild, but even the guy who claimed to be the acting guild master was captured by us. But Fairy Tale, the so-called acting guild master is really rubbish. Makarov is also one of the 10 wizard saints. Are you really at ease handing over the guild to such rubbish? The members of the Circus Night Guild drank heavily. For many years, they had never been as happy as they are today. Defeating Fairy Tale, which was faintly known as the #1 Mages Guild in the Kingdom of Fiori, felt almost like Chinese New Year to them. He he he. When that bastard Makarov returns. Looking at his injured children, I'm sure he will show extremely satisfying expressions. Ha ha ha, I can't take it anymore. I can't wait to see that bastard Makarov's expression. It must make people extremely happy. Kafuki, the guild master of the Circus Night Guild, is a guy who always looks gloomy and has a dirty heart. He was laughing out loud at the moment, and the corners of his mouth kept rising. It seemed that he was extremely happy because what his subordinates had done exceeded his expectations. Circus Knight, who has always been bullied by Fairy Tale's mage, finally stood up. Speaking of which, this bastard is really strong. He hurt me so much. A man with a bandage on his head looked angrily at Macau, who was bound by countless chains at the top of the stairs and covered in scars all over his body. This guy was beaten with scars all over his head. He was one of the 2 members of the Circus Night who invaded Fairy Tale. Originally, he thought that Macau, who was attacked by him and ate his hydrogen balloon explosion directly, should be at the end of his battle. As a result, he was almost defeated by Macau in a careless way. If it weren't for the fact that there were 2 of them, then he would have really died. In the end, it may not be who wins who. The man in the bandage thought so, and walked up to the dying Macau, raised his foot, and stepped on Macau hard. You bastard beat me up so badly? Did you sleep soundly? Hey! Wake up! The huge force under the bandaged man's feet woke Macau up from his dizziness. Here is. He saw Macau half closed his eyes, looking listlessly at everything around him. Ha ha ha! Macau, you have been brought to our guild by me. Next, you will become a sandbag for our guild to vent anger. Look, we bullied you so much, and the members of the guild you protected didn't come to rescue you. Do you think it's worth it? The so-called guild members. They're just a group of guys to use, and they're not worth protecting at all. Aren't I right? The mage with a bandage on his head seemed to thought of an idea when he said this, the corners of his mouth slightly raised. Macau, as long as you agree with my point of view, it's not impossible for me to release you immediately. The man with a bandage wrapped around his head looked at Macau and said with a sinister smile. Really? I'm relieved to hear you say that. It seems that the guildmates are fine. Macau breathed a sigh of relief after hearing what the man in the bandage said. He never cared about his own safety. In his eyes, the most important thing was his companions in the guild. You. Macau, go to hell. I see that after you go to hell, your precious companions, will they also go to hell to rescue you? After hearing what Macau said, this man with bandages wrapped around his head and scarred from being beaten by Macau looked angry. He raised his right foot and was about to step towards Macau again, his eyes were full of anger towards Macau. Hee hee. Macau sneered at the bandage man's attack. Just because Macau saw what the other party wanted to hide jealousy under the angry eyes. He was jealous that Macau would treat his guildmates like this. He was jealous that Macau had someone who could do his best and even sacrificed himself to protect. These are things that this man with a bandage on his head never had. And Macau believes that as long as Guildmaster Makarov returns, these mages will all be punished by justice. Boom! Just as the mage with a bandage wrapped around his head was about to make a move, they used it as a temporary guild in the town of Magnolia. Suddenly there was a roar from the door. Immediately following a burst of smoke, the 5 mages of Circus Night and guarding the gate were thrown directly into the hall of their guild. The next second, 2 figures appeared in the Circus Night guild. Who? The man in the bandage stopped his movements and looked at the people who broke into their guild in shock. Those were 2 children who looked about 10 years old. One is a little girl with beautiful long crimson hair. The other one was a slightly older boy with short blonde hair. 2 children. The bandaged man's pupil shrank, and there was a bit of disdain in his eyes. As for the mages who were knocked down and looked at the gate, in the eyes of the men in bandages and others Circus Night, they were already equivalent to trash. Bastard! You can't even stop 2 children. At this level, you're not worth here. Trash! A group of mages Circus Night taunted the few people lying on the ground. The boy with short blonde hair looked around. He looked at the ferocious strong men around him. After hearing the group of strong men mocking his guild members, he looked a little uncomfortable and asked in a cold voice. Are you the mages of the Circus Night Guild? What brat? Do you 2 brats want to join us? But unfortunately, we don't need trash brats in Circus Night. After someone heard the blonde boy's question, raised the corner of his mouth, deliberately teasing the kid with short blonde hair in front of him. Ha ha ha! Kids, hurry home and eat food. Then there was laughter and booing from all the mages in the entire guild. Since we have found the right place, it will be easy. It saves us from beating the wrong person, and when the old man comes back, he won't scold us. After hearing the words of the bastards in front of him, the blonde boy raised his mouth slightly, showing a cruel smile. What? Who the hell are you? Don't think that just because you're a brat, and after you say something like this, you don't have to be responsible. If you kneel down and beg us, we will let you 2 go. After hearing the arrogant words of the blonde boy, the gangsters Circus Night immediately became upset and shouted at the blonde boy and the girl with long crimson hair. Kneel down and beg you. Stop joking. It's you who will kneel in a moment. Remember it. The ones who will defeat you are the mages of Fairy Tale. After the blonde boy finished speaking, he turned into a flash of lightning and came directly to the group of scumbags Circus Night, roaring, lightning dragon's roar. Terrifying thunder and lightning spurted out from the boy's mouth, directly blasting a dozen or so mages into the air. Damn it! You little brat is looking for death, right? Looking at the blonde-haired boy who released magic at the slightest disagreement, the mages of the Circus Night Guild all widened their eyes in surprise. Usually, they were the ones who cast magic at the slightest disagreement, but today it was the other way around. It really makes them feel uncomfortable. Chapter 55, Queen of Weapons. Little brat! You just said that you are the mages of Fairy Tale. Ha ha ha, it's so funny. Is there no one left for your Fairy Tale mage? Why didn't your adults come? Instead, they sent 2 little brats. Oh, by the way, we have captured all the acting guild masters of your guild, and you 2 are the only ones who will come here at this time. You have lost your mind, you foolish brat. At the same time, Urza was surrounded by several mages Circus Night. They all looked at Urza ferociously and laughed wildly. No. You are the ones who have lost their minds. You dare to provoke our fairy tale and made me know about it. The girl with long crimson hair, who had been silent all this time, flashed a stern look in her eyes after hearing the changes from the mages around her, and said softly, "Requip." In an instant, the girl changed from her original casual clothes to a knight's armor. Holding an iron sword in her hand, she looked indifferently at the mages around her and shouted, "I will never show mercy to you bastards." The moment the girl's voice fell, the terrifying flying slash directly sent out all the mages surrounding her. As long as they were hit by the girl's slash, all of them would fall down. Damn it! Don't let them go! The members of the Circus Night who had reacted immediately took out their staffs and prepared to be cruel to children. Humph! The girl's excellent insight has already noticed the behavior of these mages. There was a bit of disdain in her eyes, she hummed softly, and suddenly an invisible force burst out from between her pair of beautiful eyes. In just a split second, the mages who were planning to sneak attack the 2 felt dizzy and dazed for a while, and then blood spurted out of their noses, fell to the ground, and passed out. Uga! Because the mages are very powerful in spirit, in order to prevent these mages who fainted from standing up again, the girl added another trick to each of these mages who fainted. Damn it, what the hell is going on? It's just 2 children, but they can annihilate more than a dozen members of our circus night in an instant. Are you kidding me? Who are you 2 bastards? A group of members circus night looked at Laxus and Urza and asked. I've said it before. We are the mages of fairy tale. Laxus glared, and the disobedient member of the Dark Guild mage spoke coldly. You guys messed with the wrong person from the beginning. Urza is domineering, and the iron sword in her hand is covered armament hacky. Where's the guys with swords? Hurry up! The members of the Circus Night Guild saw that Urza was a master at using swords, and immediately greeted the surrounding mages who also used swords, hoping to defeat Urza. Immediately, 7 or 8 people with melee weapons surrounded Urza. Hey! You only have 1 sword, but we have 7 swords here. You are no match for us. The leading strong man held a huge enchanted iron sword and sneered at Urza. Since when did you have the illusion that you have more weapons? Urza looked at the crowd in front of her with a cold expression. She directly activated her Devil Fruit ability. Immediately, all the weapons containing iron in the hands of the group of mages flew into the sky, including the wands in the hands of some mages, the tableware in the room, and some decorations, all of which floated into the air under Urza's control. The weapons are out of control. Everyone who lost their weapons, looking at the weapons that surrounded Urza like courtiers, they all turned pale with shock. It's like the Queen of Weapons. There was a mage who was Circus Knight, looking at the weapons floating in midair and guarding Urza's surroundings, while backing away, he spoke in fear. It's the end. The moment Urza's voice fell, the weapons floating in midair immediately fell down, attacking the group of mages. Ah! Accompanied by the screams, the mages were instantly knocked to the ground one by one. Lightning Dragon's Breakdown Fist. Lightning Dragon's Wing Strike. Lightning Dragon's Roar. On the other side, Laxus was not to be outdone, and kept pouring out a torrent of magical power in his body. The Golden Thunderbolt knocked all the surrounding enemies to the ground. All of a sudden, most of the mages of the Circus Night Guild had been solved by Laxus and Urza, and fell to the ground. Are you kidding? These are just 2 children. How could they be so powerful? The man with a bandage wrapped around his head looked at Urza and Laxus, who were invincible like gods. His eyes were full of shock. Just as the man with the bandage on his head was shocked, a hoarse voice rang in his ears. What are you surprised about? The ones in front of you are the members of Fairy Tale who are closest to the S-class mages. Hey! Hearing this very familiar voice, the man in bandage was startled, and immediately turned his head to look. Saw that Macau, who was supposed to be bound, had broken free at some point. Ugh! The mage with a bandage on his head immediately planned to activate magic, but it was too late. Don't underestimate our Fairy Tale's mages. As Macau said, a magic circle flickered in his hand, and purple flames rose instantly, and then he punched the bandaged man in the face. Uga! The man in the bandage was caught off guard and was knocked unconscious by Macau's punch. Ah, it hurts so much. Macau, who used too much force, looked at the fallen man in bandage before he had time to be happy, and he almost couldn't stand up because of the pain of the wound on his body. Are you okay? Just when Macau was about to fall, the girl with long crimson hair, that is, Urza, supported Macau. I'm all right. Thank you, Urza. If you hadn't taken advantage of these people's inattention and cut off the iron chain, I don't know how long it will take if I burn it with flames alone. Macau looked at Urza, who arrived in time, and heaved a sigh of relief. He didn't know why. Just seeing Urza would make him feel extremely at ease. Leave it to me and Laxus here. Go to the guild and find Ms. Porlyasika to take care of your injuries. Urza briefly explained to Macau, then raised her sword and slashed at the members Circus Knight. Then please. Macau is not talking nonsense, he seems to believe in Urza. After hearing what Urza said, he immediately ran out of the basement and towards Fairy Tale Guild. Macau planned to send Urza some helpers. Chapter 56, Take them all. Not long after Macau left the temporary guild in the basement of Circus Night. Accompanied by the interlacing of thunder and lightning and dress-up magic. A group of mages Circus Night fell to their knees. They looked at Urza and Laxus in disbelief. They are just 2 children, why are they so powerful? Impossible, we are the mages of the Circus Night Guild. We're actually being defeated by 2 teenage children. There was a mage who collapsed on the ground, out of breath, looking at Urza and Laxus and speaking in shock. When you attack our fairy tale, you must prepare yourself to be defeated by us. Urza held the sword in one hand, her face was indifferent, and the invisible arrogance wrapped around her, making all the mages who looked at Urza feel fear involuntarily and from the bottom of their hearts. At the moment when Urza and Laxus stood side by side, almost all the mages' circus night were solved. A mage dressed like a clown finally came out from behind the bar. With a smile on his face, he applauded Urza and Laxus. Clap! 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 That bastard Makarov, I didn't expect there to be such a powerful brat like you in the guild. It really makes me feel jealous, and I can't wait to devour you. The clown-like man walked up in front of Urza and Laxus, looking down at them. His expressions gradually distorted, almost insane, but after a burst of madness, the clown-like mage gradually calmed down, facing Urza and Laxus said, however, this is the end. You two have defeated hundreds of people in a row, and the magic power in your body should be exhausted, right? Kneel down and beg me now, I can give you two little brats one last chance to survive. If you don't want to be devoured by me, then obediently quit fairy tale and join our circus night. Haha, it's the guild master. The guild master finally made a move. Hey! You two brats are finished. Don't think that you can deal with our guild master the same way you deal with us. To be clear, our guild master is an S-class criminal wanted by the Magic Council. The other members of the circus night who were knocked to the ground saw their guild master of the circus night guild make a move, immediately cheered up and shouted loudly. Kneel down and beg you. Let us join the circus night. Urza and Laxus glanced at each other. The next moment, they became furious at the same time, facing the guild master of the circus night guild wearing a clown costume, they said in unison, what are you kidding? What do you think of us? We are the mages of fairy tale. What about mere S-class criminals? If you offend our fairy tale, even the top 10 mages will defeat you. Look! Be prepared! Urza and Laxus roared loudly, the domineering and magical power that had been dry in their bodies suddenly emerged, and at the same time they used their strongest moves. Flying Slash! Lightning Dragon's Heavenward Halberd! A pitch-black flying slash and thunder that turned into a square halberd with golden light went straight to Kafuki, the guild master of the Circus Night Guild. When Kafuka looked at the black slash and lightning dragon's heavenward halberd attacking him, he directly widened his eyes, and at the same time used his strongest defensive magic to try to resist. Impossible! How could you still have such magic power? Could it be that these snakes are too weak to consume the two of you? You're such a bastard who treats the lives of guild members as tools, you'll never understand. Remember, don't provoke us fairy tale anymore. Urza and Laxus shouted at Kafuki at the same time. Boom! Accompanied by a roar, the magic of Urza and Laxus broke through Kafuka's defense and hit his body. The terrifying magic power directly chewed up the magic power in Kafuka's body. Did I lose? Kafuka lay on the ground in bewilderment, his eyes rolled white, and he passed out. Guildmaster! The other members of the circus night looked at the fallen Kafuki, and their eyes widened. Do you want to continue? Urza and Laxus stood in the center of the circus night guild, looking coldly at the group of cannon fodders in front of them. Defeated Guildmaster Kafuka with just one blow. These two people are simply monsters. Damn it, why are we fighting against fairy tale? The Circus Night Guild itself is a guild formed by relying on Kafuka's strength. When Kafuka fell, it was like a tree falling. No one still had the courage to fight Urza and Laxus. Hey! You are the ones who attacked us. You bastard, you dare to attack me while I'm drinking. If you mess with our fairy tale, you will pay back 100-fold. Urza and Laxus looked at the group of circus night mages who looked at them in awe, constantly recovering their magic power. They didn't dare to show a trace of fatigue, because once the group of cannon fodders knew Urza and Laxus are running out of strength, and they will definitely rush forward. Just as Urza and Laxus regained their strength, there was a burst of broken footsteps and several angry shouts outside the door of the Circus Night Guild. This is where the rubbish on the Dark Night Road is. Urza, Laxus, we are here to help you. Immediately afterwards, accompanied by a roar, a large number of mages with the fairy tale marks poured in. All of them were more or less bandaged. At this moment, the eyes of this group of people were eager to fight. Isn't it just gang fights? Fighting is fairy tale's profession. However, when the group of mages from the fairy tale guild poured into the temporary guild in front of them, what they saw were mages lying on the ground. And standing in the center of the mages of the Dark Guild, Urza and Laxus stood tall. Hey, hey! Really? Only 2 people solved the entire circus night. Aren't these 2 brats so strong? Wakaba looked at Laxus and Urza with a look of shock. Did we come late? Damn it, there's no fight. The mages of Fairy Tale lamented, if nothing else, they just like to fight. Right now, there is finally a chance to allow them to release magic at will. Of course, they are excited, but unfortunately, this hard-won opportunity is gone now. Then we didn't come here for nothing. A mage with Fairy Tale said unwillingly. No. It's not in vain. Catch all these rubbishes, and then notify the Magic Council. Also, move all the tables and chairs here, and everything that can be moved, back to the guild. Those smashed objects in the guild should be compensated by circus night. Urza shook her head slightly when she heard someone said about taking their properties. Oh! There is such a good thing. Come on, brothers. Upon hearing this, the members of Fairy Tale rushed up excitedly and began to grab stuff. Bastard! This staff is my personal property. A mage circus knight held his staff tightly. Shut up! As the bastard mage who attacked Fairy Tale, you're not qualified to say such a thing. Besides, I just bought a magic staff, which was destroyed by you evil mages during that surprise attack. Then he was knocked unconscious by the Fairy Tale mage, and the Fairy Tale mage not only knocked out the Dark Mage circus knight, but also took away all the other equipment of the mage. This staff is awesome. The member of Fairy Tale who snatched away the staff, looked at the staff in his hand and said cheerfully. Don't you use your fists. How could a staff be destroyed by us? At this time, some members of the circus night were fighting for the members of their own guild. Stop talking nonsense. After the member of Fairy Tale who snatched the staff heard what the member of the circus night said, he punched him, knocking the talkative person unconscious. However, scenes similar to this one are constantly happening in every place in this basement. Ah, don't do it. For a moment, crying and shouting came from the entire circus night, and it was impossible to tell whether it was circus night who was the victim, or the mages from Fairy Tale who were the victims. It would be great if there were more dark guilds that attacked the guild. Even the mage of Fairy Tale said with great regret. What kind of legal mage is this? They're simply a group of bandits. A mage of circus night cried out in pain. However, in fact, the founders of the Fairy Tale Guild are a bit of a bandit. At the same time, at the Fairy Tale Guild. Really, just after being cured, they all ran to fight. Can't you Fairy Tale calm down for a while? An elderly woman with long pink hair and a red cloak looked at the empty guild and complained dissatisfiedly. Thank you, Senior Poor Lyusika. Macau, who was most seriously injured, was leaning on the hospital bed at this moment, bowing slightly to poor Lyusika to thank her. Don't talk to me. That's why I hate humans the most. Poor Lyusika said, picked up her medicine box and left the guild. Although poor Lyusika always said that she hated Fairy Tale, every time Fairy Tale needed her help, she would always come. This hilarious drama lasted until dusk. A group of satisfied Fairy Tale mages returned with full rewards after delivering the mages of Circus Night to the guards. Chapter 57, War Kills People. In the Fairy Tale Guild. Although this time is our Fairy Tale's big victory, we must not be careless. I just heard the guards say that the guild master of the Circus Night Guild escaped at some point. Damn. Wakaba watched Urza preaching with resentment. Of course you don't know. Robbery is your favorite when you're Circus Night. How can you have time to pay attention to other people? Others in the Fairy Tale Guild complained to Wakaba. Ahem. Wakaba smiled awkwardly. In short, the guild master of the Circus Night Guild, that guy named Kafuki, is a very dangerous person. I heard that he is an S-class wanted criminal with a reward of tens of millions from the Magic Council. With a stern expression on his face, Wakaba interrupted everyone's complaints, and forcibly directed the topic to the guild master who was Circus Night. Isn't this normal? If the bounty is less than S-class, he wouldn't have the guts to attack our Fairy Tale, right? Members of the Fairy Tale Guild calmly said. That is indeed. Wakaba scratched the back of his head and agreed with the members' words. After all, their Fairy Tale is the #1 mage guild in the kingdom of Fiori no matter what. The Dark Guild without strength, even if you lend those people 100 guts, it's still not enough to challenge a mage guild that has one of the 10 wizard saints in command. In short, everyone, pay attention, there is no harm. Wakaba pulled out the pipe from his mouth, exhaled a cloud of mist, and reminded everyone in the guild. Understood. The members of the guild didn't care at all. Damn it, it's all my fault. I actually let that bastard escape. It seems that I'm still too immature. I must continue to exercise. Next time, I will never let him go. Urza was sitting at the side table, constantly wiping the sword in her hand, mumbling in her mouth. Urza, you are already as strong as a monster. Even so, you're still not satisfied. Kaina shuddered when she heard Urza's words. To be honest, if she had Urza's strength, she would die laughing every day. She would have gone to Gildarts to confess that he was his daughter a long time ago. As for a girl like Urza who is always dissatisfied with her own strength, Kaina can only say that a mortal like her who has not inherited the talent of Gildarts is completely incomparable with a monster like Urza. No, I should have blocked it with my left foot. In this way, I wouldn't have gotten hit by the attack. Damn it, my body's still not coordinated enough. On the other side, Laxus, who was sitting in the other corner of the crowd, was also dissatisfied with his own strength. He kept replaying the battle just now in his mind, but shook his head uncomfortably from time to time. Surrounded by monsters like you, I'm under a lot of pressure as a peer. Kaina looked at the introverted Laxus and Urza, wanting to cry. At the moment when Fairy Tail and the mages gathered together. Damn! Kafuki, the guild master of the Circus Night Guild who managed to escape by feigning death, was advancing in the deep mountains near Fairy Tail, supported by the wooden staff in his hand. I didn't expect Makarov to have such a pawn in his hand. It really surprised me. Even the guild I worked so hard to build is included. But it doesn't matter, as long as I'm still alive, the guild can rebuild at any time as long as I'm still alive. In Kafuka's eyes, being caught by the guards is no different from being dead. And he who escaped from death will one day make a comeback. Makarov. Fairy Tail. Don't think it's over. Next time wait until the next time I come back. I will start a brand new war. Let you damn goblins pay a terrible price, just wait and see. Kafuki, dressed as a clown, stood on the mountain, looking at the Fairy Tail Guild building in the distance, and roared angrily. It's really surprising I didn't expect that a bastard like you could escape. It seems that Urza is really too immature. Just as Kafuki roared angrily, a soft female voice suddenly sounded in his ears. Ah! Who are you? When Kafuki heard the woman's voice, he immediately turned his head and looked towards the place where the voice came from. The moment he saw the person who was supposed to speak, Kafuki froze. He saw a beautiful woman with long crimson hair, a pretty face, and a graceful figure in a mage's robe appeared in front of Kafuki. However, at this moment, Kafuki didn't have any mood to appreciate the beauty of the woman in front of him, just because from the perspective of his mage, the appearance of the woman in front of him was not as beautiful and non-aggressive as a woman's appearance. Hey, hey, hey! Are you kidding me? In this world, how could someone possess such powerful magic power? If that's the case, then what are my efforts? Kafuka looked at the beautiful woman in front of him, and his eyes suddenly became moist. He knelt in front of the woman and kept crying. And there is only one reason for an S-class criminal to cry so much. The moment Kafuka saw the woman in front of him, he gave up the magic way. Because Kafuka knew that even if he worked hard to the death and have a deal with the devil, he would not be able to obtain the power of the woman in front of him. Even if it's only 1%, it can't be done. In Kafuka's eyes, this beautiful woman in front of him is simply a huge moving magic pool. The magical power in a woman's body cannot be described in words. They are completely out of the same dimension. Kafuki is an S-class criminal who is rewarded by the Magic Council, and he can be regarded as a knowledgeable person. He was also fortunate to meet Makarov and others, and a group of mages called the 10 Wizard Saints. But even the magic power in the 10 Wizard Saints' body is like a drop in the ocean compared to the woman in front of him. In the eyes of the woman in front of her, a mage at the 10 Wizard Saints level is as fragile as an ant. Goodbye clown, I find your performance very interesting, but I have to remind you that war is not just shouting slogans. War kills people. The woman smiled slightly at the clown in front of her. Then she raised the staff in her hand, and lightly slammed it against the ground. Boom! In an instant, in front of the woman, a huge pit with a distance of 1 kilometer and a depth of 100 meters appeared. As for Kafuki, who was kneeling in front of the woman, has completely disappeared from this world, along with everything in the big pit in front of her. Ah, it seems that I have used too much force. It would be bad if others find out. Forget it, let's just move the mountains from other countries over. This woman with long crimson hair looked at the deep pit in front of her and smiled. Then she waved the staff in her hand lightly. 300 miles away from the kingdom of Fiori, a piece of the Huguo mountain range of the kingdom of Elba, a neighboring country, suddenly disappeared. Completed when the woman with crimson long hair looked at the filled pit in front of her eyes, she smiled slightly and whispered softly, "It's time to go back to make bread, Evan will be back tomorrow." After the woman finished speaking, her figure disappeared instantly. As for this existence that possesses overwhelming combat power, even the 10 wizard saints combined will absolutely be invincible. Her name is Irene Belzarian. TL note, I don't know where Huguo or Elba is. I've tried looking. It's the same case with Gale Mountain Range. I couldn't find it, so I just assumed the fanfiction author created it himself. Chapter 58, Return to Fairy Tale. At noon the next day, Evan and the others finally returned to the small town of Magnolia. At this moment, countless residents in the town were preparing for something. The festive atmosphere in the town was very strong, and all the townspeople were grinning. Is this the western town? There are so many people. Lion looked around. Coming from the north, he was full of curiosity about everything around him. By the way, don't you think it's so hot in here? Gray's face flushed a little. He wasn't used to the warm weather in the west. Gray, you need to learn to be calm. Dur took off her jacket, showed her proud figure, and educated Gray. No, I always feel that you are not qualified to say that about others. Evan looked at her who was walking on the street basically in her underwear, the corners of his eyes twitched slightly. So it seems that Gray can't get into the bad habit of taking off his clothes anytime. It can only be said that the upper beam is not straight and the lower beam is crooked. Look at this, the Harvest Festival is coming soon. Everyone is actively preparing. Makarov walked in front of the crowd with his hands behind his back. Looking at the grinning expressions of the surrounding merchants and townspeople, he knew that the festival was approaching. At this moment, Makarov was in a rare good mood. Guildmaster, we still have to prepare floats this year, right? After glancing around, Guildarts looked at Makarov and asked. Certainly. Makarov nodded, and replied without doubt. Because the annual float project is the project that the townspeople of Magnolia look forward to the most, and it is also an important project for Makarov to improve the perception of his fairy tale guild by the people around him. Who said that fairy tale is all about fighting? They fairy tale are serious and look like normal people. Anyway, let's enjoy the Harvest Festival happily. Makarov shouted excitedly. He didn't look like an old man in his 70s or 80s at all. Perhaps in the eyes of Makarov, he is still young, and he can only be said to be in his prime. In Makarov's eyes, a real old man should be at the age of Precht or Warad. It didn't take long for a few people to advance. Makarov and the others walked to the Fairy Tale Guild. Looking at the old house in front of them, everyone felt warm in their hearts. Boom! Accompanied by a roar, Makarov, the leader of the guild, took the lead and kicked open the gate of the guild. Then he wrapped his arms around his body and shouted loudly to the members of the guild, "I'm back, guys! Did you miss me?" Standing in front of the guild's gate, Makarov shouted loudly to all the members of the guild. "Ah, Makarov is back!" At this time, the members of Fairy Tale looked at Makarov and the others who came in, glanced at them casually, and then continued to drink as much as they should, and fight as much as they should, ignoring them. The ignorance of the guild members made Makarov, who originally thought he would be surrounded and warmly received by the members, feel embarrassed. "Ha ha ha! How shameless! They don't even want to call you guild master." Guildarts looked at Makarov who was ignored, laughed loudly, and mocked Makarov who was not welcomed by the members. "Well, that. Actually, all members of our guild are like this. It's not that I'm not respected, it's that everyone is too wild." Makarov looked a little embarrassed. At the same time, he felt that he had lost face to the three new members of Fairy Tale, Grey, Lion, and Ur, and tried his best to make amends. It was also at the same time that Makarov and the three of Grey had just finished explaining. Accompanied by a clear female voice, a girl with a white bandage on her wrist and beautiful long scarlet hair turned around from the task board, and shouted loudly at the drinking and chatting Fairy Tale members. "Hey! What's going on with you guys? Seeing that the guild master is back, don't you know how to stand up and greet him?" At the moment when the beautiful girl with long scarlet hair spoke, Everyone in the guild who had been drinking stood up in unison and bowed slightly to apologize to the girl. "I'm sorry, Miss Urza." Immediately afterwards, he turned around and looked at Makarov and the others, squeezed out a slight smile, and welcomed him, "Welcome Guildmaster back to the guild." "This." Makarov stared at the scene in front of him, his eyes widened. The little old man's eyes were full of disbelief. "Guildmaster, big brother Evan, welcome back." At the moment when Makarov was shocked, the beautiful girl with long crimson hair walked up to Evan and Makarov, smiling and welcoming them back. "No, you've become the guild master now. The old man has only been out for less than a month, and these bastards have rebelled. My heart aches." Makarov wanted to cry, but he squatted down on the ground in despair, and drew circles on the ground with his rough fingers. "Stop talking nonsense, old man." Just as Makarov was squatting on the ground and drawing circles, Laxus, who had a head of yellow hair and plaster on his wrist, walked towards Makarov. "Laxus! Don't you even recognize me as guild master? I'm your grandfather." Makarov looked at the slightly injured Laxus, and then felt his eyes become moist. "It's over, this guild has nothing to do with him at all, and even his grandson have run away with others. Are you guys fighting again?" Evan ignored Makarov who was acting, and asked the injured Urza and Laxus. "I did fight a few times, but these injuries weren't from the fights. When brother, the guild master Gramps, and uncle Gildarts left the guild, the Dark Guild Circus Knight took the opportunity to attack Fairy Tale." Urza looked at Evan, Makarov, and Gildarts and spoke truthfully. "What?" Evan frowned when he heard this, and terrifying magic power instantly enveloped his surroundings. "Those brats Circus Knight, don't want to live." Makarov, who was originally squatting on the ground, also put away his acting posture. His old face was very serious. "Haven't you heard of Circus Knight? Forget it, it doesn't matter anyway, tell me where those bastards are." Gildarts originally planned to have a good drink after returning to the guild, but when he heard that someone attacked the guild while they were away, his expression became serious. Before drinking to his heart's content, Gildarts decided to eat the appetizer called Circus Knight first. As Evan, Makarov, and Gildarts became serious, the terrifying magic power extended from the bodies of the three, and the air in the entire guild became extremely thick and sticky. Some of the weaker mages already felt dizzy. "No, we have actually solved the problem of the Circus Knight. Everyone except their guild master has been taken away by us to the Magic Council." Urza looked at the three people in front of them who were eager to fight, and explained repeatedly. At the same time, Urza thought to herself, "Fortunately, we have solved the problem of Circus Knight. If these three people go up instead, some towns will probably be demolished, right? Things will become even more troublesome by then." Compared to Evan, Makarov, and Gildarts, Urza is much more stable. "You said that Circus Knight has already been solved by you. Could it be that?" When Makarov heard Urza say that Circus Knight had been solved, he immediately put away his majestic and thick golden magic power. He looked up and down at Urza and Laxus, who was wrapped in bandages. He had already guessed it. Chapter 59, Grey, Lion, and Ur formally join. "Ha ha ha, Guild Master, you didn't expect that, did you?" The Guild Master of Circus Knight, including all the members inside, was defeated by Laxus and Urza. Although there are still some cannon fodders left in the end, there is no trouble, and they were all solved by the rest of us. The only regret is that the Guild Master of the Circus Knight Guild, that bastard Kafuki, took the opportunity to escape. At the same time, Macau, who was covered in bandages, came to Makarov's side. He bent over and put his arm around Makarov's shoulder, and said with a smile. "Have all the mages of the Circus Knight Guild been defeated by Laxus and Urza? I remember that the kid on Circus Knight is not weak. Although he is very depraved, his strength is barely passable. I really didn't expect that Laxus and Urza have grown to such a degree. Maybe this year's S-Class Mage promotion trial will be very lively." There was a bit of surprise in Makarov's expression. In his original opinion, this year's S-Class trial would probably be Evan's solo show, but now it seems that there is a lot of room for manipulation. If I can find a way to eliminate Evan, I can also kill Evan's spirit, the genius kid. A person's growth should not be too smooth in principle. A smooth journey along the way is not good in Makarov's view. "Guildmaster, you think the enemy is too strong? You must know that Urza is Evan's sister, and Laxus is also your grandson. Isn't it right to have at this level?" Macau pulled Makarov and smiled. "That's right. Makarov nodded lightly when he heard the words, then looked up and down at the mummy around him, and asked, "By the way, who are you? Are we familiar? Could it be that you two are the mage of fairy tale? Why don't I remember seeing you?" "Guildmaster. I'm Macau. Macau. This battle against the circus knight, besides Urza and Laxus, is the most I have worked hard." Macau held Makarov's hand and spoke with a sad face. Thinking that he, Macau, had paid so much for the guild, yet his own fairy tales guild master would say such cruel words, his heart ached so much. "What? You are Macau? It's unbelievable." When Makarov heard that the mummy in front of him was actually Macau, his eyes widened. At the same time, the other people in the guild looked at Macau, who had almost failed, and laughed happily. "Ha ha ha!" Just as the mages in the guild were laughing, Evan came to Urza and asked with concern. "How's the injury?" "It's just some bruises. We're not so weak that we'll be defeated by a group of cannon fodders. Besides, in order to catch up with you, big brother Evan, this level of injury is nothing." Urza raised her chin and wanted to speak forcefully. "Don't push yourself too hard." After hearing what Urza said, Evan patted Urza's little head in distress. "Yeah, don't worry." Urza nodded. She knows her body best, and she won't force herself. That's good. Evan knew that Urza had already grown up, so he stopped interfering. Sometimes, Urza had to make her own choices in order to grow up. Besides, even if something goes wrong with Urza's practice, he, the older brother, has her back. At the same time, near the fairy tale bar. "In short, after you have been stamped with this mark, you will be the mages of fairy tale." Makarov was looking for Macau and the others, after a brief understanding of what happened in the guild when he was not in the guild. Then he took out the mark of the guild, and stamped Grey, Lion and Ur with the mark of the fairy tale guild. So far, the three of Ur have officially joined the fairy tale guild. So beautiful. Grey looked down at the mark on his chest and smiled happily. "So we are also members of fairy tale now." Lion chose a mark with the same color as his hair, and stamped it on the opposite position of Grey's mark. "This guild is really Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon." Ur held her jacket in one hand, and kept scanning the mages in the fairy tale guild with her eyes. Leaving aside Makarov, whose magic power was higher than hers, guild arts and evangelist. The magic power in the bodies of other mages in the guild can also be called excellent. Among them, Laxus and Urza have the highest magic power. From Ur's point of view, Laxus and Urza, if they are placed in the east or north, can definitely be called the top powerhouses. However, such powerful magic power now appears in these little ones. By the way, why do I feel so many sights? It's really strange. While Ur was searching for the magic power in the members of Fairy Tale, she inexplicably felt a series of hot eyes sweeping over her body. "Big sister, don't you feel that what you are wearing is too cold?" Regarding this, Evan, who was far away, was a little speechless after hearing what Ur said. In fact, although Ur had already given birth to a child, her figure has always been extremely perfect. In addition, Ur's outstanding temperament, exquisite face and bold personality of taking off her coat at every turn, showing off her underwear and figure, all of a sudden, she became the target of all the 20 and 30-year-old hungry wolves in the guild. The world is indeed too big. Ur shook her head. Just as Ur was feeling emotional, the door of the Fairy Tale Guild was gently pushed open, and a sexy woman with long crimson hair walked into the guild. "Ah, Guildmaster, you are all back." The woman smiled slightly at Makarov, Guildarts and the others. "Yo Irene, long time no see." Makarov sat on the bar counter, waved his little hand towards Irene, then looked at Evan and Urza and said, "Evan, Urza, your mother has come to take you home." Only when Irene came to the guild to pick up the children every day, Makarov would treat Evan and Urza as children about 10 years old. Irene. At this time, Evan and Urza also noticed Irene who had entered the guild. In this regard, Irene just smiled slightly, then walked up to Evan and Urza, and asked, "You two, don't you know that after completing the mission, the most important thing is not to come to the guild to hand in the mission, but to report to your dear mother?" Irene. Evan looked at Irene and wanted to explain something. "Hush! Let's talk when we get home." However, Irene didn't give Evan a chance to explain at all. Ur saw Irene talking, directly calling Evan and Urza one by one, and then left the Fairy Tale Guild. This woman. So the magical world is so vast. When Ur saw Irene for the first time, a few drops of cold sweat rolled down her cheeks. After she learned that Irene was the mother of Evan and Urza, she subconsciously tested Irene. Alright. It would be okay if Ur was just an ordinary person, but unfortunately, Ur is not an ordinary person, but a mage, and she has traveled a long way on the magic path, enough to be ranked among the 10 wizard saints. It is precisely because Ur has extremely profound attainments in the magic way she is in, that she can understand how huge the subtle magical power that Irene released inadvertently is. Chapter 60, Who is the strongest mage in fairy tale? After Evan and Urza were brought home by Irene. Evan looked at Irene and planned to say something. Anyway, you've come back safely. Let's eat first. Irene didn't blame Evan for arbitrarily accepting the task of crusade against Deliara. She just stroked Evan's little head lightly and spoke lovingly. Okay. Evan felt Irene's deep maternal love, and her heart warmed up. Master Evan, long time no see. At the same time, Ilya, Ian, and Eden, who suddenly appeared from the shadows, came to Evan and greeted him. Anyway, let's eat together. In this regard, Evan smiled lightly. As for Evan's situation along the way, in fact, the reason why Irene didn't ask a single question was because she had watched the whole live broadcast through Eden's eyes. That's much better than Evan's storytelling. In fact, during the time when Evan and Urza were constantly working hard, Irene didn't want to be idle. She would look at the job status of Evan and Urza from time to time, and at the same time check whether they were in danger. However, the reason why Irene never mentioned to Evan and Urza what she did to them is probably because the old mother loves her cubs, okay? On the other side, in the Fairy Tale Guild, Grey is worrying about one thing, that is, making friends of the same age. Perhaps it was because the color of his hair was rather eye-catching. Grey, like Urza who had just joined the guild at that time, went directly to Laxus who was sitting alone in a corner in a daze. Of course, according to what Laxus said, the reason why he sat alone in the corner with his chin resting was not because he was in a daze, but because he was meditating, reviewing and summarizing the battle he had experienced. My name is Grey Fullbuster. What's your name, please? Can we be friends? Grey looked at Laxus and asked in a very friendly manner. Laxus in the corner glanced at Grey casually after hearing the words, but did not speak. Grey was a little strange. He didn't know if there was something wrong with his introduction. Grey, you are still too immature. Learn, the real self-introduction should be like this. Lion looked at Grey who failed to strike up a conversation with Laxus, and immediately walked in front of Laxus, like an elegant gentleman. He introduced to Laxus, hello, handsome little brother, I am Lion Vastia from the north. I don't know your name? Can you be our second brother? What about our friends? After Laxus looked Lion up and down, a trace of disgust flashed in his eyes, but his mouth remained silent. Looking at the scene in front of them, Lion and Grey immediately fell silent. Is this guy deaf? Grey hesitated for a moment, looked at Lion curiously and asked. Yes, there's such a possibility. Lion nodded upon hearing that. If Laxus is deaf, then it can fully explain why Laxus has been ignoring the two of them. Tisk, two idiots. At the moment when Grey and Lion were looking at Laxus and having a heated discussion, Laxus, who looked impatient, stood up from his seat. He looked Grey and Lion up and down, and then showed a trace of disdainful smile. He deliberately said when passing Grey and Lion. Gh. Grey and Lion immediately gritted their teeth at Laxus' words. Hold, Grey. We can't cause trouble as soon as we enter the guild. Lion pressed Grey's shoulder, there was a trace of coldness in his eyes. You too, Lion, put away your modeling magic. Grey looked at Lion, who was releasing modeling magic with one hand and was about to sneak attack Laxus, but he was still persuading him not to do it, and immediately stopped him. Ah! Sorry, I almost couldn't help it, I'm about to make a move. After Lion heard Grey's words, he immediately put away the magic he was about to release. Patience! Patience! The brothers of Grey and Lion suppressed each other in this way. Watching Laxus advancing back, they continued to endure, fearing that if they couldn't help it, they would launch their own magic on Laxus. Haha! Laxus has always been like this. He didn't mean to target you or anything like that. Don't worry about it. Just as Grey and Lion were gnashing their teeth while staring at Laxus' back, a little girl with long brown hair and wearing a long white dress walked up to the two of them, smiling and preaching. Is that guy called Laxus? Very good, I'll remember it. Grey and Lion exchanged glances, and the two of them wrote down Laxus's name. You two are the ones who returned to the guild with the guild master, Gildarts, and Evan, right? My name is Kana, Kana Alberona, pleased to meet you. As Kana said, she stretched out her little hand towards Grey and Lion. My name is Grey Fullbuster. Lion Vastia. After shaking hands with Kana, Grey and Lion introduced themselves respectively. That Kana, are you familiar with the guild? After Grey and Kana introduced each other, they immediately started chatting with each other. After hearing Grey's words, Kana was taken aback for a moment, then asked with a smile. It's still familiar. After all, I have joined Fairy Tale for more than 2 years, and it will be the 3 years mark soon. I can barely be regarded as a veteran of the guild. What's wrong? Do you have any questions? You can ask me, as long as I know, I will tell you. Then do you know who is the strongest person in the guild? After hearing what Kana said, Grey looked eager to try. Although Grey is young and lacking in strength, it doesn't mean that he is cowardly. If he wants to do it, he will be the strongest. Who is the strongest in the guild? Kana heard the words, looked up and down the age of Grey and Lion, and thought that the kid at this age is indeed the kind of age who talks about being the strongest all day long. After thinking for a while, Kana spoke to Grey and Lion. The word strongest has too many meanings. If you are talking about who has the greatest power in this guild, then it must be Guild Master Makarov. The power of the Guild Master is above all other members, so it should be about right that the Guild Master is the strongest one. But when it comes to strength, it's very interesting. Whether it's Gildarts or Evan, they are all incredible monsters, possessing the strength to destroy the world. Oh! Grey and Lion listened to Kana's words very seriously, nodding their heads from time to time. However, when Grey heard Kana talking about Gildarts and Evan, he felt a little bit of doubt in his heart, so he asked, so who is the strongest one, Gildarts or Evan? That's a problem. Actually, it's hard for me to say. The two fought in the back mountain of the guild before, but they were stopped by the guild master in the end. Unfortunately, the battle between the two did not result in a winner. Kana smiled wryly and shook her head. The topic of who is stronger, Gildarts or Evan, is a sensitive topic, so it's hard for her to say. In fact, as far as the specific strength of Evan and Gildarts is concerned, probably in the entire guild, only the two of them know about it, right? If you really want to ask who is the strongest person between Evan and Gildarts, you might as well ask them themselves, Kana continued, but besides Gildarts and Evan, the strength of Urza and Laxus should not be underestimated too. Laxus? Isn't that the blonde fart guy just now? When Grey heard the name Laxus, he remembered the blonde boy with a stinking face and extreme arrogance just now. Yes. Don't look at Laxus like that all day long. Laxus Driar is our guild master Makarov Driar's grandson. He and Urza nearly wiped out the entire Dark Guild the other day, especially since the guild master of the Dark Guild is still an S-class criminal who has offered a reward from the Magic Council. And I heard that Urza and Laxus defeated the S-class bounty criminal with just one blow. By the way, Urza Belsarian is also Evan Belsarian's sister. Kana introduced Urza and Laxus to Grey and Lion. Hearing this, Grey put away his previous contempt for Laxus, but was eager to try it out. He wanted to see the gap in strength between himself and Laxus. So that blonde boy is so powerful? There seems a competition with him. Urza. Lion muttered Urza's name softly. For a while, Brother Grey and Lion had their own goals. Although Grey and Lion knew that there was still a big gap between them and the real powerhouses in the guild. But if they were the same age, Grey and Lion were still very confident. After all, they were Urza's disciples, so the two brothers were not intimidated by the backgrounds of Laxus and Urza. Instead, they were eager to try. As for Evan Belsarian, in the eyes of Lion and Grey, Evan is no longer his peers. In the eyes of Lion and Grey, Evan is a person of the same generation as their teacher Ur, and they haven't thought about surpassing Evan at all for the time being, at least not yet. However, after the two set up their small goals, they still don't know who the strongest mage in the Fairy Tale Guild is, which makes them quite distressed. Chapter 61, The Strongest Fairy Tale is of course. One day later, early in the morning. You ask me who is the strongest mage in Fairy Tale? Evan, who was looking for tasks in front of the task board, turned around to look after hearing Grey's question. We really want to know who is the strongest member of this guild. Grey and Lion looked at each other, their eyes were looking at Evan, full of little sparkling stars. The strongest mage in fairy tale is not in this guild now. You can't see it under normal circumstances. After finishing speaking, Evan picked up a quest and turned to leave. The moment Evan passed by Grey and Lion, he suddenly thinking of something, he smiled and said, "Speaking of which, you have seen it yesterday." After Evan finished speaking with a smile, he left the Fairy Tale Guild. Fairy Tale's strongest mage isn't in the guild. Did we meet that person yesterday? Damn, I can't remember at all. Grey and Lion glanced at each other, and the two got an important piece of information. Then they turned to other people. Did you say the strongest mage in Fairy Tale? Then it must be between Evan and Gildarts. But in the final analysis, I am more optimistic about Gildarts. After Macau poured a jug of beer into his mouth, his face was a little flushed, and because of his dizziness, he spoke words that he didn't quite understand. The strongest mage in Fairy Tale is between Evan and Gildarts. But Evan is sure that the strongest mage in Fairy Tale is not in the guild, so... Grey and Lion looked at each other, and they had a choice. In the afternoon, when Gildarts came to the guild to drink, the two ambushed Gildarts. "Ice make Tiger. Ice make Lance." Gildarts looked at the ice cube that was attacking him, grabbed it casually, then gently broke it and threw it into his beer glass. Cling, cling. Ah. Cool. Sure enough. You should add ice cubes to your drink. After drinking the beer with ice cubes, Gildarts spoke with a comfortable face. "So what's the matter with you guys? Brats." Gildarts moved his neck a little, looked at Grey and Lion and asked. "Damn. We want to know who is the strongest mage in the guild. Please tell us." Grey and Lion were surprised to see that their strongest magic turned into ice cubes in other people's cups, and then immediately bowed to Gildarts and asked. "Senior Macau said that the strongest mage in Fairy Tale is between you and Evan, so we want to ask you what you think about the strongest mage in Fairy Tale." Lion raised his head and spoke calmly to Gildarts. "Ha ha ha. So it's because of this kind of thing. That guy Evan is a genius. Give him another 10 years. No, maybe in less than 5 years, he can catch up with me now." Gildarts sat on his seat, and spoke to Lion and Grey with a smile. Lion and Grey shrank their pupils after hearing what Gildarts said, and there was a bit of disbelief in their eyes. According to what Gildarts said, there is no doubt that the current strongest mage in Fairy Tale that is. But I'm not the strongest mage in this guild. I advise you two brats not to explore this secret. The strongest mage in Fairy Tale is an out-and-out monster. When Gildarts said this, he seemed to think of something, and his body trembled slightly, as if he thought of something terrible in his mind. That was something that even scared Gildarts. Gildarts is not the strongest mage in Fairy Tale. Does this guild still hide a mage stronger than Gildarts and Evan? Grey and Lion looked at each other with shock in their eyes. In short, you two brats, let's focus on your peers. Now you are going to touch that level of magic. It's too early. Way too early. As Gildarts spoke, he drank 3 more glasses of beer in a row before paying the bill, picked up a mission at random, and walked outside the guild. Yes, Gildarts did not pay because he had no money at all and all the money he earned was used to pay fines. There's one last person who didn't ask. Grey and Lion looked at each other, and they found the last one, besides Evan and Gildarts, the last and most likely to be called the strongest mage of Fairy Tale, that is Fairy Tale's guild master, Makarov. He was selected as one of the 10 wizard saints by the Magic Council. However, when they approached Makarov with questions, the answer they got was, "Old man." This old man is no longer Gildarts' opponent. Makarov was wearing clothes like a circus clown, sitting on his seat and speaking to Grey and Lion with a smile. But Gildarts said that he is not the strongest mage in Fairy Tale. Grey and Lion were completely shocked this time. Yet, Gildarts is indeed not the strongest mage in Fairy Tale. Then here comes the problem. Evan said that Fairy Tale's strongest mage is often not in the guild. Gildarts told you that he is stronger than Evan, but he is not the strongest mage in Fairy Tale. And my answer is that Gildarts' strength has long surpassed mine. Then please answer now, who is Fairy Tale's strongest mage? Let's leave this answer to you to find out for yourself. By the way, let me remind you, pay attention to everyone who enters the guild, the strongest mage in Fairy Tale may be there. Makarov was sitting on the bar, speaking to Grey and Lion with a smile, but the words he said at the moment were completely childish. For a while, Grey and Lion were silent. In the next few days, their eyes kept scanning everyone in the guild. In their eyes, everyone in the guild seemed to be hiding a big secret behind them. However, for several days, the two of them still had nothing to gain from the so-called strongest mage. Until on the afternoon of the sixth day, when Grey, Lion, and others joined Fairy Tale. A beautiful woman with long crimson hair in a gorgeous long dress walked into the guild. She first smiled at Grey and Lion, then looked at Evan, who was constantly looking for quests in front of the quest board, smiled, said, "Evan, today is your birthday, let's get together after a long time, but Urza can't wait for dinner." "Irene, if you don't tell me, I will forget." Evan, who was looking for a quest, heard the familiar voice behind him, put down the quest list in his hand, and followed the beautiful lady with long crimson hair. Haha! Before Irene left, she smiled slightly at Makarov and Gildarts, who were sitting at the bar. Gildarts, who was drinking, looked at Irene, who walked into the guild, and his body froze. He waited until Irene and Evan left, and then quickly took a gulp of beer to suppress his shock. "Who is that beautiful lady? I seem to have seen it somewhere." Lion and Grey asked Gildarts and Makarov after Irene left. "That's Irene, the mage of Fairy Tale, and the mother of Evan and Urza. She's a real beauty." After hearing the question between Lion and Grey, Makarov sat at the bar and spoke with a smile. "Evan and Urza's mother. Could she be the strongest mage in Fairy Tale?" Grey and Lion looked at each other. Then Grey laughed loudly, "Ha ha ha, no way. Such a good-looking ant, no matter how she looks, she doesn't look like the monster that Gildarts said." Gildarts froze when he heard the words, and then he said very sincerely, "Stinky brats. I never said that the strongest mage in Fairy Tale is a monster. Ant. These two brats are going to be unlucky." After listening to what Grey and Lion said, Makarov, who was looking down at the few people with a smile on his head, thought silently in his heart. Although the little old man doesn't say anything, but the little old man understands everything. On the other side, Irene outside the door twitched her ears slightly, she raised her finger lightly, and a high-level caster magic flew into the guild. "Ant. I'll punish you guys." Irene was in a very happy mood and made an extremely happy decision. "Irene, do you know Gildarts?" Evan naturally noticed that Gildarts was abnormal after seeing Irene, so she asked. "Well, when you and Urza went to the back mountain for training, I had a little encounter with that idiot." Irene smiled and answered Evan's question. There is a slight intersection." Evan carefully savored the 4 words that Irene said. "It's nothing serious. I just talked to that idiot. I took you on an S-class quest without my permission as a parent." Irene looked at Evan and explained. "The result?" Evan asked tentatively. In fact, he probably already guessed the result. "Of course, I'll give him a good meal. It's better for Evan to keep out of contact with that kind of dubious person. Otherwise, Evan will easily become that kind of person when he grows up." Irene stroked gently. Touching Evan's small head, she asked in a low voice, "Speaking of which, won't Evan become such a person when he grows up?" "Evan." Evan remained silent. At the same time, he remembered something. Now he finally knew why when he happened to meet Gildarts on the ice field when he was carrying out the quest against Deliera, the other party was furious. The way Gildarts looked at him, he hit him directly. It turned out that Gildarts couldn't beat Irene, so he ran to find him to settle the score. In the guild on the other side. "No. My stomach hurts so much I can't stand it." "Me too." Grey and Lion were in the toilet shedding painful tears. Chapter 62, Selection of the 10 Wizard Saints. Magic Council, Era. Members of Council. The reason why I summoned you here is that everyone should understand why. As for the candidates for the new 10 Wizard Saints, I hope everyone can make a decision before the end of the year. The chairman of the Magic Council, a fat and wretched middle-aged man, spoke to the members of the council in front of him. Candidates for the top 10 Wizard Saints. All of a sudden, the members of the council below began to have difficulties. Still as usual, everyone speaks out the recommended candidates, and then we vote to confirm whether they can be selected. The chairman of the Magic Council yawned. To be honest, the reason why he wanted to settle now was because he was afraid of being forced to work overtime during the holiday. This bad old man has already booked his leisure time at the end of this year. Does anyone have a suitable recommender? If not, this year will continue as usual, and the quota will be reserved, and we will discuss it next year. The chairman of the Magic Council said that he was planning to postpone the selection of the top 10 wizard saints. Anyway, the top 10 wizard saints are not selected every year. Even if one is selected in 3 to 5 years, it is nothing. Moreover, the reason why the 10 wizard saints is the 10 wizard saints is because there are only 10 places, and when the places are full, they will not select more. And the reason why the selection of the 10 wizard saints gave the chairman of the Magic Council a headache was because the vacancy of the current 10 wizard saints was too serious. Me. I have a choice. Just then, Yajima raised his hand. Tisk. The chairman of the Magic Council looked at Yajima, who raised his hand, and felt a little uncomfortable. The meeting that was about to be dissolved soon had to continue after Yajima raised his hand. If there were some new members of council, the speaker will ignore them directly, but Yajima's seniority was so high. It could be said that among the people who were still alive in the fairy tale and had not retired, he was one of the person with the highest seniority. Also known as the old immortal guy. Mr. Yajima, you said. The chairman of the Magic Council, this wretched fellow, smiled at Yajima. That. The people I recommend are still the same as in previous years. It is the member of Fairy Tale Guild, Gildarts, who is known as the strongest mage in the west of Ishgar. Whether it is strength or the achievements he has made, I think it is completely enough. With hands behind his back, Yajima announced his choice. No. Absolutely not. As soon as Yajima finished speaking, he was immediately opposed by others. How can we make a mage with such a low-end character become one of the 10 wizard saints? Everyone. The selection of the 10 wizard saints should not only be based on strength. Compared with strength, we should pay more attention to character. Do you know what the outside world calls Gildarts from Fairy Tale? They all said that Gildarts is a shit mage who has nothing but strength. Those who opposed Yajima had their reasons, and took advantage of Gildarts' shortcomings, and directly angered him. As a matter of fact, Gildarts' shortcomings are indeed numerous, and the council in front of him still gave Yajima a bit of a slack, and they can tell more about the mistakes that Gildarts has made. Oh, if you talk about it in more detail, it seems that you can go directly to the arrest warrant. What? Yajima did not expect that Gildarts would attract so many opposition from members of council, and he immediately shut up about Gildarts, because besides Gildarts, he has other suitable people who can become the 10 wizard saints. If Gildarts can't do it, then I have another candidate. He is a rising star in the magic world. He just joined the Fairy Tale Guild this year, and he has done countless deeds that many people would hardly accomplish in their lifetime. He is Evan Belzarian. It just so happens that Evan has just completed the 10 years quest to eliminate the terrifying Deliera created by the evil mage Ziraf, who ravaged the continent and wiped out countless towns. It is enough to make him one of the 10 wizard saints. Originally, I planned to let Evan and Gildarts be among the 10 wizard saints at the same time, but since you strongly oppose Gildarts, I have no choice but to choose Evan alone. As Yajima said, he sighed helplessly. He originally planned to compete for 2 spots for Fairy Tale, and then let Makarov have a good time. Now it seems that he can only choose one. No, and Evan absolutely can't either. Unexpectedly, just after Yajima was selected, he immediately got opposition from other people. Why not? Are you trying to target me? Why do you deny the other when I choose one? Hearing this, Yajima frowned. He felt that these senators were planning to oppose him and target him. Otherwise, how could someone jump out and vote against him as soon as he had chosen someone? Senator Yajima, we are really not targeting you, mainly this evangelist. Evan has shown extraordinary destructive power at such a young age. Did you not see the scene of the battle between Evan and Deliera? It was a mess, the entire village and even the nearby mountains were destroyed. Although there were no more casualties after Evan arrived, but this terrain destructive power. How can we choose him? The senators looked at each other, and then explained to Yajima bravely. Then who do you think should be chosen? Oh, none of the people I've chosen are good. I said character is more important than strength. Then when Deliera was wreaking havoc on the earth, why didn't you see your so-called good-natured mage go up and stop him? Yes, those with good character and insufficient strength will die. The crusade against Deliera failed, and those who were crushed were all mages with good morals in your eyes. Yajima's mouth was like a machine gun, and it fired at the judges. After finishing speaking, Yajima took a sip of water, moistened his throat, and then continued to speak. Character? Hehe, I think you all have good character, why don't you do this? In the future, Ziref's demons will continue to wreak havoc on the mainland. When destroying towns, don't go looking for fairy tale to attack them, you go on your own, and use your noble character to conquer those demons that eat people and don't spit out their bones. Look at the great demons created by Ziref, while I sit down and calmly talk to you about your shit personality. This. The senators' faces were distressed, and they couldn't say anything. In fact, the reason why they could hold their heads high and stand on an equal footing wasn't because how strong a mage was, but because of their strength. Controlling a big killer, magic power, and countless ancient treasure-level big killers was enough to make all mage awe. Their individual strength, not to mention the 10 wizard saints, they couldn't even beat the mages of the General Guild. As for the crusade against Ziref's demons, let them go now. But the truth is the truth. In terms of face, this group of council still can't let it go so easily. As a result, Yajima and a member of the council confronted each other directly, and no one was willing to take a step back. Haha, what are you all doing? Everyone is an old man in the magic world, and they are all role models for young people. Why are you so competitive? How about this? Let's take a step back from each other. Mr. Yajima and everyone sitting here, don't worry about character and strength. 10 Wizard Saints is a role model for countless mages in the magic world. A talent with both character and strength. At the moment when countless counselors were silent, Torch Endeavor, an outlier among the senators of the Magic Council, spoke. Chapter 63, New 10 Wizard Saints. Mr. Torch is right. The 10 Wizard Saints are the role models of countless mages in the magic world. What we want to choose is someone who has both character and strength. As Torch opened his mouth, a group of congressmen seemed to have found the steps, and immediately walked down the steps given by Torch Endeavor. Hey! When Yajima heard the words, he said coldly, and didn't say anything, mainly because Torch Endeavor's words were indeed impeccable. Hee. Torch Endeavor looked at Yajima, who was snorting coldly, smiled lightly and said nothing, and continued to talk on his own. I have a candidate here, and he is the best choice in terms of character and strength. You can consider one or two. The person chosen by Mr. Torch must be someone who has no problems. That's right. That's right. There will be no problems with the person chosen by Mr. Torch. That's right. I also support Senator Torch Endeavor. After all, Torch Endeavor is different from Yajima. Yajima is an old man. Apart from his status as a member of council, he has no status. That is to say, it doesn't matter if he offends Yajima. But Taki Endeavor is different. Even if he is no longer a member of council, he is still the warden of the mage prison Black Ox and a person with real power, which make the members of council, echoed one after another. Even if they hadn't heard who Mr. Torch Endeavor recommended, they had already started to agree. Hehe, thanks to everyone's trust, in fact, you should have heard of the mage I chose. Torch Endeavor saw that the atmosphere was enhanced here, so he was going to give everyone a surprise. Ugh! Yajima knows that the general situation is over. No matter how high his prestige is, he can't compare with the real power figures. He is at most the signboard of the Magic Council. Well, these people are getting smarter than the other, no one will listen to him at all. Yajima has long seen through the dirty faces of these members of the Magic Council. The only pity is that he can't help his friend, Makarov Driar. Just when Yajima looked helpless, he heard Torch Endeavor whispering, the person I chose is none other than the one who protected the safety of the residents of a town during the battle against Delira. Altair Milkovich is the top choice both in terms of character and strength. Of course, she is also the same as the two mages recommended by Mr. Yajima just now, Mr. Gildarts and Mr. Evan. Belongs to a member of a guild called Fairy Tale. Altair. Good. Altair. Yes, it's really good. It's just her. No, wait, Mr. Torch, which guild's mage did you say that Altair is? We don't seem to hear clearly. Why did we hear the words fairy tale? We must have misheard. Are you right? Can you say it again? This mage named Altair belongs to which guild? Just as a group of judges kept flattering Torch Endeavor, they suddenly realized something, and all of them shut their mouths. Hehe, as you said, she is the mage of Fairy Tale. Torch Endeavor smiled at everyone and replied. This. All of a sudden, the faces of the counselors were gloomy and uncertain. Hey! Could it be that? Instead, Yajima, who seemed to be defeated just now, came back to life with full blood, and he looked in the direction of Torch Endeavor. Torch Endeavor was also looking in the direction of Yajima. The two of them looked at each other and then smiled at the same time, thinking, yes. That's right. Altair, fairy tale mage, this. A group of members of the councils were all embarrassed after hearing what Torch Endeavor said. Only now did they realize that they had been tricked, that Mr. Torch Endeavor and Mr. Yajima were in the same boat. It's just that one sings bad faces and the other sings red faces. As for them, they are a group of fooled. What are you still hesitating about? You need to know that Evan and Altair's crusade against Deliura is a major event that shakes the continent. If the 10 wizard saints selected this year were not from 2 people, then wouldn't our magic council become a joke? Who will dare to call us an impartial magic council in the future? Who will trust us? I know everyone has some complaints about fairy tale. But everyone, you have to be clear. Which one is more important, the momentary anger or the centuries-old reputation of our magic council? I think you can understand what I mean. Torch Endeavor smiled at everyone, and then his face immediately became serious, telling the pros and cons of the matter to the audience present. We get it. Although the members of the councils were unwilling, but as Torch Endeavor said, unless they no longer select new 10 wizard saints in the future, once the 10 wizard saints are selected, the result will be the 10 wizard saints. The people with the title of top 10 wizard saints are not the heroes who defeated the great demon Deliura created by the black mage Zeref, so their magic council will probably become a joke in the magic world of Ishgar, right? Then, let's start voting now. Please choose among the candidates Gildarts Clive, Altair Milkovich, and Evan Belzarian. After Crawford Seam reached an agreement with the ideas of a member of the council, he, as the magic council, whispered. I vote for Altair. I vote for Altair. I'm like Altair. You can only choose Altair? If you choose Gildarts, the mage who is famous in the mainland, as the 10 wizard saints, our magic council will still be treated as a joke by the magic world. The magic world will think that we have surrendered to the power. Is it? It's unfair. How is Evan? Evan is too young. No matter how powerful Evan is, he is only an 11-year-old kid. If he is chosen, what will Ishgar think of us? They will think that we are old and blind. A group of members of the Magic Council discussed. If this is the case, the result is very clear. It is a pity that Gildarts Clive was defeated again, and Evan Belzarian was also defeated. The new person who won the title of the 10 Wizard Saints is Altair Milkovic. The chairman of the Magic Council announced the final result. At the same time, this fat man who was good at super ancient character looked at Evan's surname thoughtfully. The surname Belzarian is rare in the history of the Ishgar. It is recorded that there is only the legendary virtuous dragon, and in the legend, the name of the virtuous dragon is his surname. It's the Queen of Dragon. Could it be that he is the descendants of that Queen of Dragon? But I remember that at the end of the story, the Queen of Dragon seemed to turn into a dragon and fly away, leaving no descendants. Haha, maybe I was thinking too much, or maybe it was just a coincidence. This Kiarman of the council can become the chairperson of the Magic Council. Although he is not a good person, he is still very knowledgeable, especially proficient in the history of the Ishgar. When he saw Evan's surname, he immediately thought a lot of things, but in the end he shook his head. I don't know if I really think it's impossible, or because the truth is too scary, so I forcibly numb myself and stop thinking about it. The meeting is over. After thinking about it for a while, he didn't understand it. So, the chairman of the Magic Council announced the adjournment of the council meeting, and the next step was to spread the news of Altair's selection of the 10 wizard saints to the mainland, and the job was over. Hey! The chubby speaker let out a foul breath. He finally did something big before the new year, so his political achievements can be regarded as and succeed. Chapter 64, Altair's Shock. Meanwhile, fairy tale. Tomorrow is the harvest festival, right? Everyone is all together again. It's such a long-lost feeling. All the people in the guild gathered together, because the harvest festival was coming soon. All the mages in fairy tale stopped working. For the mages of fairy tale, among the countless events in a year, there are only 2 events that almost all the staff participate in, and one of them is the harvest festival. As for the other one, it is fairy tale's annual S-class mage promotion trial. Whenever these 2 activities are carried out, Makarov will call all the mage in advance. It's just different from the S-class mage promotion trial. After 99% of the members are called, they are actually here for the show. The people who really participate in the event are those selected by the guild master. The harvest festival is like a new year for the members of Fairy Tale and the townspeople of Magnolia. For this reason, not only did Evan and Ezra not go out to do quest, but even Laxus, who always said he was dismissive of the harvest festival, stayed behind. Yes, this guy with a lot of hairy and arrogance since ancient times, said that he doesn't want it, but his body is surprisingly honest. Just when the members of the Fairy Tale Guild gathered together, drank beer, and chatted about the mountains. Outside the gate of the Fairy Tale Guild, a group of uninvited guests appeared. Here, is this fairy tale? The door of the Fairy Tale Guild was gently pushed open, and a civil servant of the Magic Council walked into Fairy Tale under the guard of a group of soldiers from the Magic Council. Ah! Are you members of the Magic Council? I don't know what you guys from the council are doing in our guild. The mage of Fairy Tale saw who was coming, and immediately looked bad. For Fairy Tale, their attitude towards the Magic Council is not much stronger than the attitude of the Dark Guild towards the Magic Council. Is this the mage of Fairy Tale? It's scary, I'll tell you seniors, it's not good to push this job to me. The civil servant surrounded by more than a dozen soldiers looked at the vicious Fairy Tale mage all around him, and his expression panicked. In fact, he didn't want to come. Being a civil servant are anything but good. But who made him the youngest among the civil servants? Hugh, be rude. You depraved mages. I'm here to announce the order from the Magic Council. The civil servant nervously took out the letter of appointment in his hand, and shouted in a panic, Fairy Tale Guild Mage, Altair Milkovich. Yes. Altair stood up from her seat when she heard the civil servant's words. Although she didn't know why the people of the Magic Council sought her out, and she wasn't afraid of the troubles the Magic Council would find her, but the face that should be given was still given. Guys of the Magic Council, why are you looking for Altair? If something bad happens, we won't let you go. Grey and Lion panicked when they heard that the man in front of the Magic Council was looking for Altair, and threatened the official of the Magic Council. It's scary. That guy is Makarov of the 10 Wizard Saints, right? He's staring at me. It feels like he's thinking of going outside to ambush me later. There is also that uncle with a wretched face, the famous mage Gildarts, who is in a mess except for his strength. He won't smash me to pieces, right? And those brats staring at me. The brown red-haired kid is Evan, that's right. I heard that this kid takes pleasure in abusing others, and likes to hit people with meteorites. The crimson long-haired girl next to Evan, and the bad boy with yellow hair, should be the Urza and Laxus who defeated the Dark Guild. I heard from the seniors that all the mages they took in from these two people were seriously injured, and many of them were directly sent to the hospital for rescue, and so far they haven't found the S-Class killer card of the leader of the Dark Guild. The whereabouts of Fuga, according to legend, the murderer has been cooked and eaten by the members of Fairy Tale. Damn it! Why is this guild actually a group of monsters? They are all so scary. I feel like if I continue to stay here, I will suffocate. I'd better finish reading this letter of appointment and retreat. The civil servant of the Magic Council looked at the people in the Fairy Tale Guild with a look of horror and panic. In the eyes of the civil servants of the Magic Council, Fairy Tale and the strongest Dark Guild are a level of threat. No, to be precise, Fairy Tale, who has a background and can do bad things openly, is more hateful and terrifying than the Dark Guild. So, what do you want me to do? At this time, Altair had already arrived in front of the civil servant of the Magic Council. Is this guy the same Altair who tore the demon of Ziraf? She looks beautiful, but I didn't expect her to be a monster. The civil servant was taken aback when he heard Altair's words. He didn't expect that Altair, who was rumored to have torn up the demon Deliura created by Ziraf into 108 pieces, turned out to be such a beautiful girl. However, the civil servant shook his head in the next second, and wiped out all the messy things in his mind. He will not be fooled, and he will not be deceived by his appearance. Cough cough. The civil servant coughed twice, cleared his throat, then stood up straight, looked at Altair seriously and said, the mage of Fairy Tale, Altair Milkovich. According to the Magic Council, after the discussion of the council, it was decided to appoint you as one of the 10 Wizard Saints. I will give you the medal and honor representing the 10 Wizard Saints. I hope you can be proud of it, and make persistent efforts to become a role model for the mages of the whole continent. That is, at the same time as the civil servant's voice fell, the soldiers behind him presented Altair with a silver medal representing the 10 Wizard Saints. Saints? 10 Wizard Saints? All the mages in the Fairy Tale Guild shouted in shock after hearing the civil servant's words. Me? 10 Wizard Saints? Thank you for the medal. Altair was also shocked, but she still accepted the medal from the Magic Council. In this case, my task has been completed, and I will leave. The civil servant looked at Altair, who accepted the medal, nodded slightly, then turned around and left quickly. The civil servant walked away quickly, as if he was going to be eaten by the mages of fairy tale if he was one step too late. I have become one of the top 10 wizard saints. Altair looked at the medal in her hand in disbelief, mainly because it all happened so suddenly. She was unprepared, and she thought she was not mature enough to deserve this medal. That's great, Altair became one of the 10 wizard saints. If that's the case, wouldn't Altair be as powerful as the guild master? Gray and Lion laughed, happy for their teacher. No, Gray, I'm going to die. Shut up, the toilet is mine, I will never give it to you. In the next second, Gray and Lion, who were still smirking, went to compete for the toilet. Yes, Irene's caster magic is still in effect. That's amazing. In this case, we, Fairy Tale, will have 2 of the 10 wizard saints. Ha ha ha, our Fairy Tale is the strongest guild in Fiori. No, be bold, our Fairy Tale is clearly the strongest guild in Ishgar. Everyone in Fairy Tale looked at Altair, who had won the 10 wizard saints, and laughed. After seeing Altair becoming the second 10 wizard saints, they looked so happy, as if they had also become the 10 wizard saints. Generally, they are really happy for their companions. Chapter 65, 2 people who are not interested in 10 wizard saints. Why are you shocked that you can get the title of the 10 wizard saints? Makarov walked to the side of Altair, who was staring at the 10 wizard saints medal in her hand in a daze, and asked with a smile. No, I just don't have enough self-confidence. I don't think I'm worthy of this medal that represents the status of the 10 wizard saints. Looking at the medal in her hand, Altair felt more pressure. Perhaps in the eyes of most people, this medal represents status and strength. But in Altair's view, this medal only represents endless pressure. In Altair's eyes, this medal is not a good thing. Too much glory can make people lose themselves. Altair opened up her world with great difficulty, and didn't want to close her world again. Hehe, the medal of the 10 wizard saints is just a medal. There is nothing worthy of it. It is just a false name. Since the Magic Council issued this medal to you, you should wear it. Makarov looked at the trembling Altair and smiled slightly. The 10 wizard saints are just a title, you really have to take this title seriously. If you really think that you have won the title of 10 wizard saints, you are truly one of the 10 strongest mages in Ishgar, then you are a fool. But, whether it's Evan or Gildarts, they are more suitable than me to become the top 10 wizard saints. Altair frowned slightly. She thought that her strength was no match for Evan and Gildarts. About this, please look over there. After listening to Altair's words, Makarov sighed softly, corrected Ulu's gaze, and looked at Evan and Gildarts at the side. Only an idiot would drink coffee with sugar, coffee must be bitter. No, bitter coffee is undrinkable at all, why would anyone like that kind of drink? Are you looking for faults? Do you want to fight? If you want to fight, just say it. Bastard. Hey? Fighting? I've never been afraid of anyone, stay with me to the end. What did you say? Evan and Gildarts were sitting on their seats, wrestling their wrists and spraying each other. It seems that the 2 of them didn't care at all that they didn't get the 10 wizard saints. They don't even care whether they have won the title of the 10 wizard saints. If those 2 idiots won the title of the 10 wizard saints, they will definitely become even more complacent and intensified. Maybe one day they have nothing to do and go to attack a certain country. Makarov looked at Evan and Gildarts and sighed helplessly. In fact, there are indeed countries that employ mages to fight wars. Makarov's attitude towards this kind of mission is that he will not let go if he can't. After all, this kind of mission is very dangerous, and a lot of troubles will be involved if it is not done well. Of course, if the member insists on going, then Makarov will not stop them. After listening to Makarov's words, Altair was silent for a while. Simply put, Makarov's words are quite reasonable. In short, since the Magic Council has selected you as the 10 wizard saints, you don't have to have any psychological burden. The 10 wizard saints is just a false name. After persuading Altair, Makarov walked towards Gildarts and Evan with his hands behind his back. Halfway through the walk, Makarov seemed to have thought of something, turned his head, looked at Altair furtively and said, "By the way, you wear the 10 wizard saints medal issued by the Magic Council, if you go and take transportation in some countries protected by the Magic Council it will be free, even if it's not free, you can get a discount. I won't tell ordinary people. After Makarov finished speaking, he continued to walk towards Evan and Gildarts. Not long after, Altair heard Makarov yelling at Evan and Gildarts, "You can't drink something like coffee with or without sugar. Real men drink beer. Beer. You two drink coffee." The guy, to put it bluntly, is still not mature enough. "What? Would you like to hear what you just said, bastard? Even if you are the guild master, I will not show mercy." Immediately afterwards, the guild became lively again, and the three strongest male mages of Fairy Tale fought together. Fortunately, none of the three used their magic power, so Evan won an overwhelming victory. Evan, already perfectly integrated with Fairy Tale. Haha. Altair looked at the scene in front of her, and all the original pressure in her heart disappeared. "It's just a medal." As Altair spoke, she casually played with the medal in her hand for a while, and then put it directly into her pocket. So far, the incident of the 10 Wizard Saints is completely over. Perhaps. The next day, the morning of the Harvest Festival. Hway! It's completely revived now. Grey and Lion walked out of the toilet with a happy face. The two of them had a stomachache for a week, and they didn't recover until the morning of the Harvest Festival. Yes, in other words, if today was not the Harvest Festival, Irene would never have bypassed these two brats so easily. "Evan, our teacher Altair has won the title of the 10 Wizard Saints. She surpasses you." After his body recovered, Grey ran to Evan. "It's more comfortable when you have diarrhea." Evan glanced at Grey and spoke softly. "I mean, Altair has won the title of the 10 Wizard Saints. You don't even have this title, do you?" Grey repeated his own words. He wanted to be angry with Evan in this regard. Although Grey knew that he couldn't beat Evan in terms of strength, he could at least beat Evan in some respects. To put it bluntly, it was just a child's comparability. At this moment, Grey seemed to have acquired a new toy, showing it off in front of other children. "So what?" Evan looked at Grey indifferently and asked. "So?" Grey looked at Evan's calm expression, and the corners of his mouth twitched slightly. "What is so? Altair won the title of 10 Wizard Saints, but you didn't, wouldn't you feel unwilling?" "Ah, Altair won the title of the 10 Wizard Saints, but you didn't get the title of the 10 Wizard Saints, it really can't be reconciled. I'm really mad at you." After hearing what Grey said, Evan immediately understood what Grey was here for. Evan calmly preaching to Grey as if coaxing a child. "So fast." Grey looked at Evan's extremely calm face and said that he was not reconciled, and almost fell to his knees by accident. He looked at Evan with black lines all over his head, and Grey knew that Evan was not reconciled at all. "Damn it, why do you and Gildarts look like you don't care about the title of 10 Wizard Saints?" So Grey asked very unwillingly. "Does that even matter? The 10 Wizard Saints in the Ishgar selected by the Magic Council, just listen to it." Evan didn't seem to care at all. Anyway, the saints in the later stage are all miscellaneous soldiers, so it's useless for him to care. Meanwhile on the other side, 10 Wizard Saints. Who cares about that kind of thing? Besides, why does the Magic Council rank me with the other 9 mages and call me the 10 Wizard Saints in Ishgar? As long as one is the strongest, is it enough? Why are all 10 people called the strongest? Don't you think it's weird? After listening to Lion's words, Gildarts didn't care at all. He even went too far compared to Evan, who just thought that the 10 Wizard Saints was just a false name. However, in the eyes of Gildarts, if he is given the same title as other mages, it will immediately lower his grade. Regarding the fact that the 10 Wizard Saints have not been assembled yet, so even the ranking among the 10 Wizard Saints has not been carried out, and Gildarts is very dissatisfied. He, Gildarts, is the strongest, and the emphasis is on the strongest. Don't look at his wandering appearance all day long, he is recognized as the strongest mage in the west of Ishgar. These two guys really don't take the title of 10 Wizard Saints seriously. Grey and Lion looked at each other, and then spoke silently in their hearts. Chapter 66, Grey and Leon who were defeated in a second. Grey and Lion sat in the corner as if they had been hit by something. For Evan and Gildart's disdain for the title of the 10 Wizard Saints, Grey and Lion reset their views on magic. Especially Evan and Gildart's 10 Wizard Saints, they didn't have any special appearance at all, which made Grey and Lion, who were complacent because of Altair got the title of 10 Wizard Saints, instantly calm down. "Lion, let's cheer up. We can't continue to be decadent like this. Gray took a deep breath, his eyes gradually became sharper. He wants to be self-improvement, he wants to keep going. You are right, Gray. We must work hard to catch up with Altair. One day we will also receive the title and medal of the 10 Wizard Saints. After hearing Gray's words, Lion trembled, and there was flames burned in his eyes. Lion, you know it. Our goal is also in the guild now. Taking advantage of the moment when fairy tale members gather because of this festival, we must challenge them, defeat them, and win the battle. Our first battle into fairy tale. Gray patted Lion's shoulder, and looked at Laxus and Urza who were sitting in 2 different directions. At this time, Urza and Laxus seemed to have deliberately opened some distance, one sitting in the front, and the other sitting in the back. You can faintly feel the tit-for-tat between the 2 people. Yes, because Fairy Tale's S-Class Mage promotion trial is coming soon, Laxus and Urza have already regarded each other as their opponents. Go and challenge them. On the other hand, Gray and Lion had wishful thinking, and regarded Laxus and Urza as the targets of their challenge. Laxus, fight with me. Gray took a sharp breath, walked up to Laxus, and watched the dazed Laxus preach. Hey! Hearing this, Laxus turned his head, looked towards Gray, and then smiled dismissively. I'm sorry. I'm not interested in perverts who don't even know how to put on their clothes. Ah? Who do you call a pervert? Gray was furious when he heard the words, and he was about to release magic while speaking. Gray, clothes. Carla passing by glanced at Gray and reminded. After hearing Carla's words, Gray looked at himself, and then his face turned pale with shock. Hey? Why are my clothes missing? Damn it, when did I take it off? I have no memory at all. Gray looked at his naked body, with only a pair of big pants covering his private parts, and looked surprised. Haha. Laxus looked at Gray who had only one big underpants on and gave a disdainful smile, then stood up from his seat and walked towards the outside. Where are you going, Laxus? We agreed today, everyone will get together. Carla looked at the back of Laxus leaving and asked. Don't worry. I'm just going out to get some air, and I'll be back in the afternoon. After hearing Carla's question, Laxus replied without looking back. Damn. Laxus, don't run away. Just when Laxus was about to leave and go outside to feel the breeze of freedom, Gray, who was dressed, stopped Laxus in his way. Laxus looked at Gray and frowned. I've said it all, Laxus. Fight me before leaving. I regard you as my challenge target. There was a burst of cold air on Gray's body, and he looked at Laxus and smiled. I thought you, kid, were a relatively calm type, but I didn't expect you to be a hot-blooded idiot. Can't you tell the difference in strength between us? Just rely on the current you, practice for another 10 years, and challenge me again. After Laxus looked Gray up and down, he shook his head in disdain. For the current Laxus, Gray is too weak to mention any qualities at all. Without further ado, Ice make. Gray frowned, and put his hands in a magical pose, and suddenly the cold air gathered towards him. Then warm up a bit. Laxus looked at Gray and smiled slightly, followed by Laxus' words. Suddenly there was thunder, screaming wildly in everyone's ears. That's Gray and Laxus, right? Ha ha ha, finally someone is fighting. I'm getting impatient. Accompanied by bursts of thunder, the members who had been doing nothing in the guild all gathered around, watching Gray and Laxus excitedly. By the way, there seems to be someone fighting over there. Is it Lion and Urza? Haha, the 2 brothers Gray and Lion finally couldn't stand it anymore. Are they ready to move towards the guild summit? But, it's still too early, isn't it? Some guild members commented on the fact that Lion and Gray challenged Urza and Laxus. In their eyes, although they were very excited about someone fighting, this kind of challenge without any suspense was lacking. For the current Gray and Lion, it is too early to challenge Laxus and Urza. Boom! Just as the atmosphere between Gray and Laxus became more and more serious, and the surrounding audience became more and more excited, a roar eased the originally solemn atmosphere. What happened? Gray was taken aback, bewildered. Yes, this roar was not made by Gray and Laxus. Humph! Urza made the move, right? When Laxus heard the roar, he seemed to think of something, snorted coldly, and thought silently. On the other side, in the front place, Urza gently withdrew her weapon, and while watching, Lion, who was knocked down by her instantly, said, you lost. It knocked me down with just one blow. Is the gap that big? Lion was lying by the bar with his eyes blank. He fought Urza so quickly that he was killed by Urza before he even had time to react. Your name is Lion, right? You picked the wrong opponent. Keep practicing. After Urza finished speaking, she turned around and left in a sassy manner. What? Lion has already been killed? So fast. Grey looked at Lion, who was lying on the ground, and his pupils trembled. He knew that Lion should not be Urza's opponent, but he did not expect that the duel between Lion and Urza would be decided so quickly. Even though everyone is about the same age, is there really such a big gap? When Grey thought so, he had already forgotten that Evan was actually the same age as them. Ezra's side is over. Then let's start the battle between us. At the same time, Laxus withdrew his gaze and looked at Grey. Grey shuddered instantly. He could feel that after Urza defeated Lion with one blow, Laxus looked at him strangely. Boom! Before Grey was ready, a golden thunderbolt was instantly released from Laxus' hands, hitting Grey instantly. The moment Grey was hit, he felt that the magic power in his body was not running smoothly, and his whole body was extremely soft, and he couldn't exert all his strength. Just lay down here for 5 minutes. After finishing speaking, Laxus bypassed Grey, who was lying on the ground, and walked out of the gate of the Fairy Tale Guild. It's 0.5 seconds faster than Urza, this time I won. Laxus, who left the guild, looked at the sky and smiled brightly. Yes, after Urza defeated Lion in seconds, this is not just Grey and Lion's challenge to Laxus and Urza, but also a confrontation between Laxus and Urza. This side is also an instant kill. Ha ha ha, this is expected. Sure enough, whether it's Urza or Laxus, they're all real monsters. Everyone in the guild looked at Grey and Lion, who were collapsed on the ground, and laughed. Damn! Next time, we must call back. As for Grey and Lion, who were instantly defeated, they kept shouting in their hearts at this moment. Chapter 67, Rhapsody. In the afternoon, the sky is getting dark. Everyone! How are the floats prepared? Makarov, dressed in a clown costume, with his arms wrapped around his body, looked at his children and shouted. At this moment, Makarov is like an ordinary old man, without the slightest airs of the 10 wizard saints. It's all ready. Grey and Lion, 2 bandages wrapped around their bodies and their faces, walked up to Makarov. How did you two make yourself like this? Makarov stared at the miserable appearance of Grey and Lion, and then asked. It fell. Grey turned his head and said embarrassedly. Yeah, I fell. Lion was also a little embarrassed. They really couldn't tell Makarov that the reason why they became what they are now is completely the result of their overthinking, challenging Urza and Laxus and being instantly defeated. If that's the case, the candidates for this year's float have been decided. Let Grey and Lion stand at the top. After Makarov finished speaking, he looked at Laxus, who was on the side. What a pity. Laxus, even if you want to be the top card this year, you won't have a chance. Makarov smiled meanly at his grandson. Who cares? Hearing this, Laxus widened his eyes and shouted. Ha 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 ha. Immediately, there was another burst of laughter in the Fairy Tale Guild. Anyway, the annual float parade. Let's begin. With Makarov yelling. All the mages of Fairy Tale are busy. At night, townspeople from Magnolia came to both sides of the street, waiting for something. Countless children stared wide-eyed, looking forward to this annual event. When night falls, the float of Fairy Tale moves forward slowly. Naturally, Grey and Lion were standing in the first row. They used ice make magic at the same time, and countless weapons and animals flew into the sky in an instant. Then it exploded and turned into ice crystals. What a nice view! It's so cool! The surrounding townspeople looked at the countless ice crystals flying into the sky, and they all showed happy expressions. They stretched out their hands and grabbed the sky. The cold ice crystals melted in their palms, making the townspeople feel numb. Ice make Rose Castle. Immediately afterwards, Altair stood in the center of the float. Her hands gathered magic power, and a castle made of ice flowers was instantly formed on the float. Altair, on the other hand, naturally stood on the top of the castle, like a queen, beckoning to the townspeople standing on both sides of the street. I know her. She is the new Fairy Tale 10 Wizard Saints, the hero who defeated Deliera. The townspeople of Magnolia looked at Altair, who had built the ice and snow castle, and they all started discussing. What are the 10 wizard saints? A townsman who was not familiar with the magic world asked suspiciously. The top 10 wizard saints seem to be the 10 strongest mage in the entire continent selected by the Magic Council. By the way, Makarov, the current guild master of Fairy Tale, is one of the 10 wizard saints. Some townspeople who knew the magic world looked at the townspeople who didn't understand, and explained triumphantly. Ah! Isn't Fairy Tale a guild that monopolizes the 2 strongest mage in the world? Is it so powerful? The townspeople who didn't understand the magic world were shocked and looked at Altair on the float. It's just so powerful. A townsman who knew the magic world, with his arms wrapped around his body, kept nodding his head, as if he, too, was so powerful. Change. Heaven's Wheel Armor. Appearing behind Altair is Ezra. He was manipulating the weapons of the Heaven's Wheel armor obtained from the quest, posing freely in the sky, from blossoming flowers, to the pattern of the Fairy Tale Guild. It is pleasing to the eye. Sitsizi. Next it's my turn. Laxus, who had been preparing for a long time, saw Urza summoning countless weapons to fly into the sky, and a terrifying thunderbolt was released from him, directly landing on Urza's weapons. Immediately, Urza's weapon radiated bursts of golden light, which made Ira's pose even more beautiful. Yes, Laxus not only participated in the annual Harvest Festival this year, but also participated in the Fairy Tale Parade. At last, it's the old man's turn. At the end of the float, Makarov stretched his muscles and bones. First, he turned into a huge giant and walked on the street. The terrifying aura made the townspeople on both sides of the road feel terrified. What is that? Giant? No, is it Guildmaster Makarov? Just when passers-by were startled. In the next second, he turned into a short clown, stood on top of the ice castle made by Altair, and played the ice puck in his hand funny in front of everyone. Ha ha ha. For a moment, the townspeople in the small town of Magnolia laughed out loud. As expected of Guildmaster Makarov. Still hilarious as always. Some old residents of the town of Magnolia couldn't help but cry when they saw Makarov's funny appearance. No one could imagine that funny little old man was actually a very powerful magister. We are the mages of Fairy Tale. When the float was about to end, Makarov put down the ice puck in his hand, said, and raised his right hand high, pointing his index finger to the sky. At the same time, the other members of Fairy Tale also raised their arms high. They also imitated Makarov's appearance and made the gesture of Fairy Tale. Old man, you still remember? Laxus blushed slightly, feeling a little bit in his heart. When you raise your finger, it doesn't matter whether you are in a different place, or you can't return to Fairy Tale because of some things, just raise your head and look at the sky. The hearts of everyone in Fairy Tale are connected. SHH. 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 The moment Makarov raised his finger, the entire Magnolia was illuminated by golden light. The next second, a burst of golden light flew into the sky, forming a pattern of Fairy Tale in the sky, and then exploded like fireworks. It's fireworks! What a nice view! Ha ha ha, Fairy Tale is a big deal every time. The townspeople in the small town of Magnolia laughed loudly as they watched the beautiful fireworks exploding in the sky. Is it Evan? Makarov looked at the golden fireworks in the sky, the corners of his mouth slightly raised. Hey! Now it's done. Near the cabin in the woods deep in the east of Fairy Tale, Evan wiped the sweat from her forehead. He was still very satisfied with the beautiful scene he made with the glint devil fruit. Hey! Kid, you are not welcome here. Since the town of Magnolia is holding a celebration, we'll go back to celebrate honestly. Don't always run to me. Just as Evan was admiring his masterpiece, a voice with a bit of resentment sounded behind Evan's ear. It's Senior Porlyusika. I'm here to bring you a cake. After Evan heard the voice behind him, he smiled and took out the gift she had prepared. This is the wine made by Irene, the bread and cakes baked by myself, and the meat of the monster I hunted. As Evan said, he snapped his fingers, and a table appeared in front of the person behind him, and then delicious food appeared on the table. You kid! Polycycle looked at the lit candles on the table in front of him and the food on the table, his eyes trembled. Don't tell yourself to prepare dinner for me. When Polycycle turned sideways and yelled at Evan, Evan had disappeared without a trace, leaving only a piece of paper that looked like a refrigerator. Happy holidays, Senior Polycycle. After a short sentence, there is nothing. Little devil. Polycycle's eyes softened as she looked at the note, she seemed to recall her youthful days. As for Evan, he has already returned home to celebrate the festival with Irene. At the same time, as Makarov raised his finger high, in an unknown mine in Ishgar, under the urging of countless soldiers, a thin old man with chains wrapped around his body raised his head and looked at the golden circle hanging high in the sky. He seemed to be missing something. Chapter 68, The 100 Years Quest Mission? Roar. On the snow-capped mountain, a wyvern with white scales was roaring at the young man in front of him. Facing this kind of beast with dragon blood, super high magic resistance, and a mage killer, the young man looked extremely calm. Boom. During the whistling, the clouds seemed to split open in the sky. A meteorite burning with endless flames fell from the sky. The keen senses of the wyvern seemed to hear the roar of the sky. It looked up, and then its eyes widened. Boom. With the fall of the meteorite, the flying wyvern and the snow mountain disappeared in place in an instant. It's done now. After all, the flying wyvern was killed by the meteorite, the boy came to the body of the flying wyvern, picked up the broken scales on the ground, and whispered. As for why the boy appeared here, time goes back to a few hours ago. Fairy tale 24 hours endurance road race. Evan sat at the bar and heard Makarov preach. That's right. Because everyone has completed a lot of tasks this year, and the guild's funds are relatively rich, so we plan to hold an event for all members. Makarov smiled at Evan and preached. So that's the case, but it's okay. Evan nodded slightly. Speaking of which, he has been investigating the matter of human traffickers recently. The so-called human traffickers naturally refer to the group of idiots who don't know what to say and plan to live in the Tower of Heaven and revive Jalal through the R system. A group of people with brain twitches actually thought of constructing a big magic to resurrect a person who would not die by himself, and Evan didn't know what to say. And Evan has two purposes for investigating this group of constructors who were used by others to build the R system. First, this group of people is a cancer. If they are allowed to move around on the mainland, more children will be taken from their families. Evan also tried to rescue those who were regarded as slaves by the Tower of Heaven. After all, there are many good people in it, and there is one person who should be regarded as a senior of the guild. The second is that the person standing behind the scenes of the Order of the R system is very likely to be Precht. After all, although the host of the R system is Brian, the guild master of the Oration Cease, he has been behind the scenes. The person who manipulated everything, including sending to confuse Jalal to continue to complete the R system, was Precht, the second guild master of Fairy Tale. Of course, at this point in time, Precht should have changed his name to Hades. The third is Ur. After all, Evan agreed to find Ur with Altair. According to Evan's memory, when Ur saw Altair and her two apprentices, she mistakenly thought that Ur had abandoned her, so little Altair went to Brian alone to continue training. After Ur showed super talent and destroyed the experimental base, Ur should have been introduced to Precht by Brian. In other words, Ur should have learned the arc of time under Precht. Right now, this is the problem that troubles Evan as he continues to search for Ur. With Precht's magical attainments, the other party may hide his stronghold. Moreover, the whole Ishgar is so big, it would be very difficult for Evan to find Precht even when he was running around all over the continent. Evan can choose to wait and see, but the premise of this waiting is to find a tree that can be guarded. 1. 2 people's strength is still limited. Evan scratched his hair vigorously and spoke weakly. Although Evan also approached Altair to inquire about the other party's information collection, but unfortunately, Altair is in the same situation as him, and the progress of the two is very slow. For this kind of information gathering work, it is not based on the strength of the mage, but on the intelligence network, contacts, and the number of people. Obviously, Evan and Altair did not have the ability in this area. Why don't you ask the guild master for help? Evan thought about it. Makarov, as one of the 10 wizard saints, and even got mixed up with a group of guild master, should far surpass Evan and Altair in terms of connections and information. So Evan, please help me get the scales of the Blizzard Vern. At this moment, Makarov looked at Evan and asked. Blizzard Vern. That kind of thing can be easily defeated by Laxus or Urza, right? Evan was not interested in the so-called Blizzard Vern mission that Makarov said, and his mind was now full of things about the R system. That kind of thing is dangerous. Laxus and Urza are immature. Makarov shook his head. In his eyes, the current Laxus and Urza are still not qualified enough. I see. Evan yawned, and planned to take time to help Makarov get rid of the scales of this Blizzard Vern, but his primary goal was to collect information and find members of the Tower of Heaven. Ding! The quest begin, win the Fairy Tale 24 Hours Endurance Road Race Champion, and reward a 100-year quest medal. Remarks: please don't cheat the host, let's go all out. Just when Evan was listless and ready to perfunctory Makarov, the task of system update made Evan's eyes tremble. A medal of the 100-year quest. Evan was shocked, and at the same time, he frowned slightly, that is to say, in the eyes of the system. Evan wanted to win the Fairy Tale 24 Hours Endurance Road Race, and accepting the 100-year quest and killing a few wyverns was a level of difficulty. Simply put, it was an impossible task. Interesting. This made Evan feel a little bit interested. He wanted to see who could be faster than him, who possessed the glint glint devil fruit, who could move forward in a straight line and reach the speed of light. So, Evan went to find Wyvern. And brought the scales of the flying wyvern back to the guild. Ah, this is the scale of the wyvern, right? Makarov frowned looking at the scales in front of him. Isn't it the same? Evan looked at Makarov puzzled. The scales of Blizzardvern I want. The most essential difference between it and the wyvern is that one eats grass, while the other eats meat. To put it simply, the Blizzardvern is a harmful monster. He will devour a lot of rare herbs, but the wyvern will hunt and kill many monsters that harm humans, and because the magic power in the human body is low, and the meat is too greasy and the protein content is not much. The reason is that wyverns generally don't attack ordinary humans. Wyverns are beneficial monsters. Yes, the one that eats grass is bad, the one that eats meat is good. Makarov looked at Evan and explained the difference between the two kinds of monsters. But it's not your fault, the two big guys look so much alike. Makarov sighed and spoke to Evan. Then I'll look for it again. As Evan said, he planned to go to the MT Hakobi to look for the so-called Blizzardvern. In short, let's do this first. The wyvern is the wyvern. After hearing what Evan said, Makarov immediately stopped Evan. He was afraid that Evan would misidentify the monster again and wipe out the wyvern on MT Hakobi. Anyway, now that the scales are in hand, let's compete tomorrow. After Makarov stopped Evan, he preached like this. It is good. Evan nodded lightly, but he was looking forward to tomorrow's game. Chapter 69, Irene competes. So the next day, all members of the Fairy Tale are required to participate. The 24 Hours Endurance Road Race. Hello everyone, I am Jason, the ace reporter from Sorcerer Magazine, and I will report for you. First of all, let me tell you about the rules of the event. This year, on the top of MT Ivor, many wyvern scales were placed. The winner is the one who gets the scales and returns first. The top 3 will be rewarded. But the last one will be punished, and a funny photo will be taken, which will be published in Sorcerer Magazine, the best-selling weekly magazine in the magic world. The one who spoke was a middle-aged man with short black hair, and beside him was a yellow-haired intern with a relatively youthful face. There are so many activities this year. Wakaba, with an airplane head and a cigarette holder in his mouth, preached to the crowd. You must be slower than me. Macau is exercising his muscles and bones. In terms of endurance, he is still somewhat confident. Although he can't be the first, there is no problem in ranking among the best. Comparing speed. In terms of speed, Redus will not lose to anyone. Even light. Laxus put his hands in his trouser pockets, and bursts of golden lightning were wrapped around him. At the same time, Laxus also took a look at Evan beside him. Of course he knew Evan's ability. Laxus decided to compete with Evan. I won't lose. Urza was wearing a professional sportswear for sprinting, exercising her muscles. Why should I participate in such a boring competition? If you waste time here, the girls will cry. Gildarts looked confused, because it was almost the end of the year, so he didn't go out to do the mission. Stop talking nonsense. Makarov spoke to the listless Gildarts. Fate shows that my grades will not be very good. Carla wanted to cry, she was really not good at running or something. Gray. Lion. Let's work hard together. Gray and Lion looked at each other, eager to try. Children are like this, they are motivated in everything. You too, I don't know how to release water. Standing behind Gray and Lion, Altair smiled. Is Altair also participating? After hearing Altair's words, Gray and Lion were shocked. Certainly. Altair nodded, not only would she participate, but she was aiming to win. At the same time, it was also for relaxation. She was not very optimistic about the investigation task that Evan told her about these days. The opponent's hiding method is very powerful, but this is of course, if the hiding method is not powerful, it should have been discovered by the Magic Council long ago. There is no one who can be called an opponent at all. Could it be that the system looked at me poorly and gave me a 100 years quest medal for nothing? Evan looked at the contestants around him, raised his brows, and felt puzzled. Evan, who owns the Glint Glint Devil Fruit, is really a bit flustered. In his eyes, there is nothing faster than light in this world. At the same time, Evan looked forward to the reward he received when he won the first place, the Centennial Medal, which is a universal medal that can be upgraded at will. I don't care. Let's talk after winning the championship. Evan moved his body a bit. His goal was simple, to win the Fairy Tale 24-hour endurance road race. God! Just when Evan regarded the champion of the endurance competition as his own, a voice that was extremely familiar to Evan sounded from behind him. Hey hey hey! No way! This voice, could it be? Evan trembled when he heard the voice behind him. Now he finally knew why the system set the reward for winning the 24 hours endurance road race as the Centennial Medal. It can be said that this mission is completely dependent on the strength of a person who appears behind him at this moment, and the level is carried up. It's a pity. Evan and Urza. Because the guild master said that all members are forced to participate, today we are opponents. Irene smiled slightly at Evan and Urza. Is Irene also participating in the 24 hours endurance road race? It's a mistake. If Irene is also participating, then the difficulty of the task can indeed be called a 100 years quest level. Evan was startled. If Irene was the opponent, it would be reasonable to call it the difficulty of the 100-year quest, right? After all, even if it takes 100 years for the mages of Ishgar, it is difficult to defeat Irene. But no matter how fast Irene is, she can't be too fast, right? Evan still has the confidence to win the game, at least before Irene makes a move, Evan still has confidence. Until game start. Immediately after Makarov's voice fell, a group of fairy tale mages moved. This battle is over from the very beginning. In terms of speed, nothing is faster than light. As Evan said, his body turned into countless rays of light and flew into the air. Flying. Isn't this cheating? All the mages on the ground looked at Evan, who had turned into light and flew into the sky, and shouted unwillingly. Don't say I'm cheating, because in the future, it will only be worse. Evan didn't pay attention to the words of the losers on the ground at all. His body instantly became elementalized. Of course, while elementalizing, he still had to use knowledge to lock the position, otherwise, he would be directly lost. After all, the light is too fast to surpass his targeted mountain, even when Evan turns into light and moves. However, the moment Evan used the Glint Glint Devil Fruit, Irene moved. He saw the wand in Irene's hand lightly touching the ground, and her red lips moved slightly. Enchantment. Yes, time that was faster than light stops. Damn Evan, but we don't. The mages who shouted fairy tale, who can't admit defeat, paused in place for an instant, and they still kept their mouths wide open, angrily scolding Evan for being despicable. In an instant, all the fairy tale mages who were about to move forward, including a large audience gathered around, their expressions were all paused. Not only that, the time in the entire town of Magnolia was directly suspended by Irene. What is this? Can Irene also add stagnation attributes to time and space within a certain range? Evan, who had upgraded his time resistance to level 8, turned into light and floated, his pupils trembling. Level 8 time resistance gives him a higher resistance to time magic. If the magic power or time magic does not reach level 8, he can mostly ignore it directly, but right now he is still suspended. It's just because the person who releases this time magic is too different from his rank. As a result, the time resistance of level 8 only allows Evan to move his mind freely during Irene's time stop. But that's right, since the war concubine who can use time magic is still ranked below Irene and the Wizard King, there is no reason for Irene and the Wizard King not to use time to stagnate. Then I'm doomed now. Evan was floating in mid-air, his thoughts constantly turning. Chapter 70, Fairy Tale First 24 Hours Endurance Road Race. Just when Evan was thinking, Irene moved. Enchantment. Irene's figure disappeared instantly. By the time Irene's figure reappeared within Evan's line of sight, there was already a dragon scale in her hand. After the time stop, Teleportation, can you be more lazy? Evan looked at Irene, who teleported after the time stop, and smiled bitterly in her heart. Originally, he thought that he was already reckless enough to use elementalization first and move at the speed of light, but compared to Irene, he's still the little witch who sees the big witch. Okay. Now you can move. Irene whispered softly, and tapped the staff on the ground lightly. Boom. In an instant, everyone's time was restored. First place, Irene Belzarian. It took less than a second. The specific time was so fast that I forgot to press the timer. Then, everyone heard Makarov's voice behind him. In this short moment, the champion of the fairy tale 24 hours endurance road race was born. So fast. Everyone present was shocked after hearing Makarov's words. Come on everyone. Holding the snow-white scales in her hand, Irene waved to the crowd, who subconsciously looked back. Because the guild master said that everyone must participate. So I'm sorry, this number 1 position, I will take it. As Irene said, her vermilion lips gently kissed the white dragon scale in her hand. Hey, that scale is mine now. A group of male mages looked at the scales kissed by Irene and showed obscene smiles. It was also because the attention of the group of mages was attracted by Irene, and as a result of the group of mages running hard while looking back at Irene, they all fell to the ground. Farewell. At the same time, Evan has already built his own light channel in the sky. Since he can't win the first place, let's take the second place. It's not so easy to get the medal of the 100-year quest. With that in mind, Evan was ready to leave. Don't even think about moving forward. Gildarts looked at Evan, whose figure began to turn into light, and directly raised his palm. Boom! Immediately, white light covered Evan's body, smashing Evan and his light channel into pieces. Gildarts. In the sky, Evan, whose figure slowly converged from the light into a human form, stared at Gildarts below him with a hint of anger in his eyes. Evan suddenly felt the feeling that Boursalino was hindered by Rayleigh and unable to move forward. Haha, how could it be possible for you to leave so easily? I've been staring at you all the time. Gildarts looked at Evan, who was blocked by him, and smiled lightly. Everyone, goodbye. At the moment when Evan and Gildarts were confronting each other, Altair had already covered the ground with ice, and she was making roller skates and moving forward at a high speed. Forward! Forward! Behind Altair are Grey and Lion, the 2 proud disciples of Altair, who are also good at skating. Who will let you succeed? Laxus looked at Grey and Lion, who were advancing, and there were 2 lightning bolts. Suddenly Grey and Lion lay on the ground, their bodies numb. And you? After stunning Grey and Lion, Laxus did not stop, and shot a 3rd bolt of lightning at Altair. Your thunderbolt is still too tender, this level of tricks is useless to me, brat. Altair seemed to have expected someone to attack from behind. She made a backhand freeze, which directly offset Laxus' lightning and froze Laxus' legs at the same time. What? For a while, Laxus was frozen in place, unable to move forward. Laxus, you have to remember, you must always be careful. Urza stood behind Laxus, reminding Laxus to be careful. At the same time, she took out a huge stick with the magic, taking advantage of Laxus to stun Grey and Lion. He directly froze, the moment his lower body couldn't move, Ezra knocked him down with a stick. In an instant, the unprepared Laxus fell directly to the ground after bearing Urza's powerful stick that shattered the ice under Laxus' feet. On the ground, his eyes kept spinning, his brain was in a mess, and he whispered softly, "Damn it." Before Laxus finished speaking, he lay unconscious on the ground. It's up to me next. Change clothes. Urza said, her body flickered for a while, and when the light ended, she had already changed into a ski suit. Go ahead. Urza stepped on the sled and headed straight for Altair. Gildarts. When Altair and Urza moved forward, Evan's body lit up with a burst of golden light, and shot towards Gildarts. Anyway, number 1 is gone, luckily Evan let go of his hands and feet. Crush! Facing Evan's attack, Gildarts unhurriedly released the shattering magic. The moment when Evan's light and Gildarts' shattering magic touched each other. Boom! Immediately, an astonishing roar erupted between Evan and Gildarts. Since you all start using magic, don't blame us. It was also at the moment when Evan and Gildarts were dueling, the rest of Fairy Tale's mages began to show their special abilities. Cheetah mode. Super high-end running shoes. Drawing magic. Trap magic. Purple flame, Flame whip. Dense fog magic. Fairy tale mages released their own magic at the same time. Finally, what was originally a good race turned into a big fight between fairy tale mages. There are constant roars on the field. From time to time, mages temporarily withdraw from the competition. The reason they quit the game was not because they ran out of strength, but because they were hit to the core by the aftermath of other people's magic. Ha ha ha. The original sports meeting seems to be moving towards the magic fighting festival. Ha ha ha, it's really interesting. For everything in front of me, I can only say that Fairy Tale is indeed the #1 guild in Fiori Kingdom. It's really stylish. The host of the game, holding a microphone, continued to explain. I knew it would be like this. My sports meeting. Makarov looked at the mages of the Fairy Tale Guild who were in love with each other, and his eyes filled with tears. Obviously this sports meeting is used to improve the image of Fairy Tale in the minds of the townspeople of Magnolia. He even hired the editor-in-chief of Sorcerer magazine at his own expense, just to improve the mages of Fairy Tale. The stereotype in the eyes of the mainland people, their Fairy Tale mages is not only good at fighting, but also good at fighting. Still can be approachable to engage in some sports. But now the style of the sports meeting suddenly changed, and it became a magic fight, and the whole fight with the big devil is. Now that Makarov is justified, he can't explain it clearly. Especially, when Makarov saw the editor-in-chief of the Sorcerer magazine and the reporter taking photos frantically with the camera in his hand, he seemed to be in the right place. He doesn't want this to look like a whole big news. Makarov's heart turned cold again. Chapter 71, Rewards and Punishments. The next day. Fairy Tale's first 24 hours endurance road race, the race is over. Now it's up to me to announce the ranking of this competition. Makarov stood in front of the group of guild members, looking at them seriously. Although in the end the development of the Fairy Tale 24 hours endurance road race made Makarov somewhat helpless. How should I put it, Makarov's ideals are full, and he wants to use this sports meeting to change the views of the Magic Council and the mainland people on Fairy Tale Guild. It's a pity that the reality is very different. Makarov's education policy for his members makes it impossible for these people to calm down. Ugh. Thinking of this, Makarov sighed, looked at the Fairy Tale members who were able to run out of 10 minor injuries by running in front of him, and remembered their rankings. First of all, the first place in the Fairy Tale 24 hours endurance road race is naturally Irene Belzarian. The reward is 300,000 jewels. The second place is the second place in the 24 hours endurance road race, Evan Belzarian. The reward is 200,000 jewels. In the end, the third one to return to the finish line, that is, the third place in the 24 hours endurance road race, Altair Milkovich. A reward of 150,000 jewels. The above 3 members, please stand on the podium after hearing it. After Makarov finished speaking, Irene, Evan, and Altair stepped onto the podium. It's almost there. It's a pity that I was careless. Gildarts under the podium touched his chin with a helpless expression on his face. Originally, he wanted to keep pestering Evan all the time, to get the first place. It's a pity that things backfired. In the end, Evan, who had been fighting with him, took the opportunity to find a flaw, and used his ability to teleport away, winning the second place in the 24 hours endurance road race. As for himself, because he fought with Evan for too long, he only won the bottom position in the end, and even almost got the bottom one. By the way, what Gildarts meant by almost there, didn't mean that he was able to get the top 3 positions and be on the podium. What he meant was that he was almost able to let Evan take the last place, and made Evan devastated. For Gildarts, who is playful and fun, it doesn't matter whether he wins the championship or not, the important thing is to watch others suffer. Damn it, it's only one step away. The fourth place is Urza, who is only a few seconds away from the third place Altair. Urza's one step away, is really only one step away from the top 3 positions. Damn it. What a boring game. Laxus looked at the crowd on the podium, feeling a little uncomfortable in his heart. In fact, Laxus doesn't care about the rewards for the top 3. The main reason is that he lost to Urza this time and only won the 5th place. This was a heavy blow to him who regarded Urza as his opponent. In fact, Laxus has already decided that this year he must spend time quietly exercising in ultra-long endurance races, studying the skills in this area, and he must shock everyone when he conducts the Fairy Tale 24 hours endurance road race again next year. Not only to surpass Urza, but also to defeat Evangelist. As for Irene Belserian's fairy tale 24-hour endurance road race ultra-fast return record, Laxus didn't dare to think about breaking records. The main reason is that Laxus doesn't even know how Irene moves. How can he compare it? Meanwhile, Evan on the podium. Although after winning the second place, he still received the reward from the system, but he was not happy. Because after Evan won the second place in the fairy tale 24 hours endurance road race, the system only gave Evan an SS class medal as a appeasement prize. The value of the SS class medal is hundreds of times lower than that of the 100-year quest medal. This made Evan heartbroken. But, of course it is. If it's so easy to get the 100-year quest medal, it will make Evan feel uneasy. Evan tried to hypnotize himself. Evan, looks like you still have to work hard. Irene looked at the unhappy Evan, smiled slightly, and then lightly patted Evan's shoulder. Evan nodded when he heard the words, and he decided to turn around and increase his magic power and magic resistance. Then it's photo time. Jason, the ace reporter of Sorcerer magazine, held a camera in his hand, and took pictures of Evan and the others, leaving countless photos that made everyone unforgettable. Of course, even the last mage in the first fairy tale 24 hours endurance road race still did not escape punishment. The penultimate number of this year is undoubtedly Grey and Lion. As for the reason why Grey and Lion won the last place, it was because Laxus wanted to take revenge on Altair, but Laxus couldn't beat Altair, so he took the knife on Grey, who had provoked him. As for Lion, Lion is completely dragged down by Grey and Altair. The penultimate punishment for this year's 24 hours endurance road race is to take funny photos, and the theme of the funny photos is women's clothing. Grey and Lion standing on the stage with blushing faces and wearing girls' skirts, letting the reporters below continue to take pictures. This angle is great. Grey, you are too suitable for women's clothing. Although Grey is not bad, but compared to Lion, he is still a bit worse. Grey, are you interested in only wearing women's clothing in the future? The members of Fairy Tale in the audience looked at Grey in women's clothing and kept booing. Asshole! Who wants to wear this thing every day? After hearing the booing of Fairy Tale members in the audience, Grey took off his clothes angrily, and stood on the stage facing the wind with his upper body naked and his lower body only wearing his own big pants. Wow! This angle is good. But I have to say one thing, Grey, you are really bold. Jason looked at Grey, who had just taken off his clothes. He was startled at first, and then kept pressing the shutter of the camera in his hand. Ha ha ha! Grey, you are really interesting. You are not afraid of being naked, but you are afraid of women's clothing. What a strange shame. All Fairy Tale members in the audience laughed loudly as they saw Grey standing on the stage in only a pair of underwear. Stop talking nonsense. This is different. Grey said he would rather go naked than wear a skirt. That's right. Grey and I would rather run naked than dress up as women. This is a matter of principle. Lion patted Grey on the shoulder, and then, following Grey's example, he took off his clothes. In an instant, Grey and Lion, who were at most transvestites, directly upgraded to perverts who like to run naked. That's right. Grey kept nodding his head. What is his principle with Lion? The principle is to run naked rather than dress up as a woman. Chapter 72, Title of Epic. Jason is very satisfied with this, and the punishment has been upgraded. Regarding this point, Fairy Tale and the mages are very dissatisfied, because Lion and Grey are almost naked in front of everyone. This kind of daily, tired of streaking, made Fairy Tale's mages all feel bored and turned their heads, without any sense of expectation. It's really boring. That's it, that's it. Crack, click, click. While talking, Jason kept pressing the shutter with his nimble fingers, leaving the photos of Grey and Lion in the Sorcerer magazine forever. So far, Grey and Lion have won a glorious title in the magic world of Ishgar. They are called, the two perverted brothers who love to run naked. With Jason's help, it can be regarded as fulfilling the wish that Grey and Lion have never forgotten in their hearts. They hope that the title of themselves and others can resound across the mainland like Evan. Maybe when the two of them fought the enemy in the future, and the enemy saw them, the enemy would shout it in shock, no. They are the naked and perverted brother from Fairy Tale. How Grey and Lion feel in their hearts. With the general gold obtained by Irene, Evan, and Altair, and the rewards of the two brothers Grey and Lion. Like to mention the epic title of Fairy Tale, the perverted brother who likes to run naked, after all the distribution is over. The Fairy Tale members who were watching dispersed and returned to the guild. As for Evan, Urza, Irene, and the three of them returned home together. After all, the Belzarian family won the first and second place in the first sports meeting, which is really worth celebrating. After the three returned home, they had a banquet with Ilya, Ian, and Eden. Then went to sleep early. Speaking of which, Ilya, Ian, and Eden seemed to be the mages of Fairy Tale, but they didn't participate in this year's 24 hours endurance road race, but were responsible for keeping an eye on the store for Irene. Regarding this point, as the president, Makarov didn't say anything, as if he had acquiesced. The next day, when Evan and the others entered the guild, the mages who used to drink, chat, and fart had disappeared. What Evan and Urza saw were Fairy Tale mages who were registering tasks at the front desk. For a while, the atmosphere of the entire guild seemed to have changed. So that's it, is that day approaching? Evan's keen senses instantly sensed that something was wrong with the atmosphere. He narrowed his eyes slightly, and immediately thought of the reason why the mages in the guild were so diligent. Urza, hurry up and grab the task. If you are late, there will be no task to do. Evan looked at Urza beside her and spoke. Okay. Urza nodded after hearing the words, and then quickly ran towards the signboard. Get away from me. Urza was kicking away, standing in front of the board, not moving for a long time. She was trying to push people who were blocking the board as she tried to choose the task for her. As for Evan, taking advantage of the time when Urza attracted everyone's attention, he flew to the second floor where the S-class quests were stored. What's going on today? Why is everyone so active in doing the task? In my impression, don't everyone hate work the most? Grey and Lion, who came in with Evan and others, looked at the Fairy Tale mages who were constantly registering tasks at the front desk of the guild, and asked doubtfully. Hey, hello. Grey, isn't it the end of the world? Everyone decided to do a mission at the end to leave an unforgettable memory for their life that they have never done a mission before. After looking around, Lion watched Grey preach. Ah! It's possible. After hearing what Lion said, Grey nodded slightly, and all of a sudden, Grey seemed to understand everything. Yes, according to Grey and Lion's experience, the members of Fairy Tale will not work, so they rely on fighting to make ends meet. So that's it, everyone is starting to hurry up and work. Speaking of which, the time for that should be coming soon. Just as Grey and Lion were puzzled by the drastic change in the atmosphere of Fairy Tale, and countless people ran to work, and had a reasonable discussion, Kana, who walked by Grey and Lion, looked at the busy people in the guild, completely different from the usual ones. The mages of Fairy Tale seemed to have thought of something. When is the time coming? After hearing what Kana said, Grey and Lion immediately turned their heads to look at Kana, and asked at the same time. Hey, of course it's Fairy Tale's most important annual event. When Kana heard this, she smiled slightly, and approached Grey and Lion, speaking mysteriously. Grey and Lion looked at the mysterious Kana, swallowed a mouthful of spit, and looked at Kana very nervously. Their small heads were spinning rapidly, thinking about the last thing about the so-called Fairy Tale in Kana's mouth. What exactly is the important event? Fairy Tale's most important annual event, of course, is the S-class mage promotion trial. Stupid. As the mage of Fairy Tale, don't you even know this bit of common sense? You are really stupid. Just after accepting the mission, when passing by a few people, Laxus, who happened to overhear a few people talking, approached Grey, Lion, and Kana at this time, with a mocking tone, to the several people said the man. Laxus, this is what I want to say. Kana was annoyed that Laxus suddenly interrupted and took away what she had to say. Haha, who made you speak so slowly, Kana? Laxus looked at the angry Kana and smiled slightly. S-class mage promotion trial. Grey and Lion looked at each other, and they both saw the word shock in each other's eyes. Good. However, you don't need to care about it. After all, the S-class mage promotion trial has nothing to do with you two brats. After all, people like you who won the last place in the 24 hours endurance road race Fairy Tale are not eligible to participate in the S-class mage promotion trial. Ha 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 ha. Laxus looked at Grey and Lion's excitement, the corners of his mouth slightly raised. So Laxus stood in front of Grey and Lion, taunted them loudly, and then walked away with a satisfied expression on his face, laughing loudly. I really want to crush him. The veins on Grey's and Lion's foreheads tensed up, and the corners of their eyes twitched slightly. Ah! By the way, Grey, your women's clothes are indeed very good, at least better than when you don't wear clothes. Ha 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 ha. Laxus, who walked to the door, seemed to think of something. He turned his head to look at Grey, and smiled. Grey, don't be angry, Laxus has always been like this. Kana smiled at Grey and Lion, persuading them. Laxus, he. However, what Kana didn't expect was that Grey wasn't angry, but a dazzling light flashed in his eyes. He remembered my name. Grey murmured, feeling very emotional in his heart. At the same time, he clenched his fists, thinking that his hard work these days was worth it. After hearing Grey's words, Kana was stunned for a moment, and then she understood. It seems that Laxus has never called Grey's name before, and has always been called a kid. Today, it is the first time Laxus called Grey's name. Chapter 73, S-Class Mage Promotion Trial. By the way, speaking of it, what is S-Class Mage Promotion Trial? Grey kept staring at Laxus until the other party disappeared, then he thought of something, turned his head to look at Kana and asked. Hee. Kana was taken aback after hearing Grey's words, and then smiled wryly, thinking, so Grey and Lion still don't know the meaning of the S-Class Mage Promotion Trial. First of all, before you understand Fairy Tail's S-Class Mage Promotion Trial, you must first know what an S-Class Mage is. Kana decided to explain the S-Class Mage to Grey and Lion. Oh. Lion nodded slightly, then looked at Kana seriously and asked, then what is Kana S-Class Mage? S-Class Mage are the strongest mage in the guild. They are different from ordinary mage. S-Class Mages are all experienced and strong, and they can also accept S-Class quests that are above ordinary tasks. Kana said this, and brought Grey and Lion to the task board on the first floor. Look, this is the list for us to accept quests on weekdays. All the tasks here are ordinary quests, and there are more difficult and higher risk factors on top of this. Dangerous quests, those quests that ordinary mages cannot complete, are S-Class quests. And mages who handle these quests that ordinary mages cannot complete at all are S-Class Mage. The S-Class quest of our fairy tale are not placed on the quests board on the first floor, but on the quests board on the second floor. On the second floor of the Fairy Tale Guild, only S-Class Mage can go. However, it's a very dangerous place. Kana took a deep breath, and told Grey and Lion what the S-Class quest was and what the S-Class Mage was for. Wow! When Grey and Lion heard this, little stars lit up in their eyes. By the way, currently, the only active S-Class Mage in Fairy Tale is Gildarts. Kana looked at Grey and Lion, who had glowing eyes, smiled, and then spoke. Kana looked at Grey and Lion as if she saw herself when she first joined the guild, and it was the same when she heard the S-Class Mage Promotion Trial. At the same time, when Kana told Grey and Lion that Gildarts was the only active S-Class Mage in Fairy Tale, Kana felt a little proud in her heart. After all, the only S-Class Mage in that guild was her biological father. Is Gildarts the only S-Class Mage in Fairy Tale? Grey and Lion looked at Kana in shock. Yes, now that Guildmaster Makarov hardly does quests, Gildarts is the only S-Class Mage in Fairy Tale. Kana nodded and replied. Isn't Brother Evan a S-Class Mage? In other words, if we can become an S-Class Mage, it means that we have not only surpassed Urza and Laxus, but also surpassed Evan. Grey and Lion looked at each other, and their hearts were surging. At the same time, a question arose in their hearts, that is, how to participate in the S-Class Mage Promotion Trial. Kana, how can we participate in Fairy Tale's S-Class Mage Promotion Trial? So, Grey and Lion looked at Kana and asked. This. Even if you ask me how I can take the Fairy Tale S-Class Mage Promotion Trial. I don't know either. Because I haven't participated either. When talking about this moment, Kana seems to be a little regretful. In fact, she has been working hard towards the status of an S-Class Mage, but there are too many monsters in Fairy Tale. Don't even you know. Grey and Lion looked at each other, and they seemed to feel the deep resentment in Kana's heart. Yes. I haven't participated in. Because as long as you are selected and allowed to participate in the S-Class Mage Promotion Trial, you can default as the S-Class Mage backup in the guild. My strength has not yet reached the level where I can be selected as the S-Class Mage backup. Listening to the words of the two, Kana's resentment deepened. She also wanted to take part in the S-Class Mage Promotion Trial, pass the assessment successfully, and be recognized by her father, Gildarts. But she is not strong enough. There's nothing she can do. Besides, those people in the guild who are allowed to participate in the S-Class Mage Promotion Trial are all too abnormal in strength, right? That's beyond the scope of an S-class mage, right? Haha. Thinking of this, Kana couldn't help but smiled wryly. However, although I don't know what the criteria for participating in Fairy Tail's S-class mage promotion trial are, but you can see that the members in the guild will do a lot of quests every time the S-class mage promotion trial is near. I think the candidates for Fairy Tail's S-class mage promotion trial will be determined based on the completion of each year's quests. Anyway, the amount of quests completed each year and the evaluation of the final completed quests must be one of the conditions leading to the S-class mage promotion trial 1. In addition, among our guild, there are several candidates who can participate in the S-class mage promotion trial. I can probably be sure. Just a few seconds later Kana regained her composure and smiled at Grey and Lion. Really? Then who in our guild can participate in the S-class mage promotion trial? Grey and Lion asked excitedly after listening to Kana's words. This. First of all, it is recognized by the guild this year, the person who is most likely to pass the S-class mage promotion trial, that is, the so-called number 1 seed. Evan Belzarian. However, rather than saying that he is the number 1 seed who passed the S-class mage promotion trial, it is better to say that he is a member of the S-class mage in the guild. In fact, apart from not having an S-class mage status, he has all the abilities and rights of an S-class mage. He can even accept S-class quests at will. The default thing for guild members. I think he is probably the only one in the guild who is not an S-class mage, but can accept S-class quests. As Kana said, she looked at Evan who had secretly jumped down from the second floor of the guild after accepting the S-class quests. As Evan turned into light and left the guild in an instant, Makarov's roar came from the second floor of the guild, "Bastard Evan! Don't take all the S-class quests at once. You have done them all. What about the other people in the guild?" Apart from some doing her own way, Evan is probably the most comprehensive mage in the entire guild, right? Kana looked at Evan, who had angered Makarov, and smiled wryly. As she spoke, even Kana herself lost all confidence. How should I put it, in their Fairy Tail guild, these S-class mage backups have quite individual personalities. Chapter 74, The Result of Kana's Divination. We understand Brother Evan's strength. Grey nodded. He had experienced Evan's strength before, and it was the first time he had seen it so far. In order to prevent an avalanche in the Mt. Hokabe, someone directly evaporated all the snow on Mt. Hokabe into water vapor. Lion agreed with what Grey had said, that Evan was nothing but short of a monster. And then there is your master, the woman who has already won the title of the 10 Wizard Saints, the Ice Mage Altair Milkovich. To be honest, Altair is already the 10 Wizard Saints, it's okay to give her the title of S-class mage, right? However, it seems that the guild master insisted on yelling about traditions, and did not award Altair the title of S-class mage, so that Altair has to participate in this year's S-class mage promotion trial like everyone else. Kana continued, and at the same time she looked around, looking for Altair, but Altair seemed to have something to do and left the guild. Kana did not find Altair. Altair is the strongest. As soon as Grey and Lion heard Kana talk about Altair, they immediately became excited. In their minds, their master will always be the strongest mage. Except for Evan and Altair who have the strength of S-class mage, or even higher than S-class mage, the most likely to become S-class mage are probably Urza and Laxus. The strength of these two people, I think you two should have experienced it. Kana then talked about Urza and Laxus. As for the strength of Urza and Laxus, Kana did not say much, because she believed that Grey and Lion knew Urza and Laxus better than she did. Urza. As soon as Lion heard Urza's name, he suddenly felt his body start to ache again. At the same time, Lion recalled in his mind, Urza's shocking blow that instantly defeated him. Laxus. When Grey thought of the thunder and lightning from Laxus, his body suddenly became numb involuntarily. Obviously, Grey and Lion have already felt the power of Laxus and Urza with their own bodies. In the eyes of Grey and Lion, Laxus and Urza are monsters. I think the people who will take the S-class mage promotion trial are these 4 people. To put it bluntly, the above 4 people are a bunch of monsters. In other guilds, they have already become S-class mage. When Kana said this, she couldn't help complaining that the S-class mage promotion trial in her guild was too strict. Whether it was Altair or Evan, in other guilds, they would had already been promoted to S-class mage. As the secret weapon of the guild, it also serves as a life signboard, and it's like a big man offering it up. If it was in the other guilds, Laxus and Urza can already have the title of S-class mage, but in Fairy Tail, with the strength of Laxus and Urza, they are basically comparable to this guild. She missed this year's S-class mage title, which made Kaina feel emotional, and at the same time, her heart was extremely entangled. On the other hand, she was happy to see her guild being strong, and on the other hand, with these monsters, when would she become an S-class mage? Of course, if there is only one person who can win the S-class mage promotion trial this year, then there is no doubt that it will be Evangelist. Kaina paused for a while before continuing to preach. In Kaina's eyes, the person who could take the S-class mage promotion trial was undoubtedly Evan, Altair, Laxus, and Urza. If only one of the four could be selected to become S-class mage, then there was no doubt that it must be Evan, because in Kaina's eyes, among the four people who were very likely to take the S-class mage promotion trial, Evan, who could have a brief confrontation with Gildarts, was the strong one. Will Evan be the one who finally gets the S-class mage qualification? Grey and Lion looked at each other, and then they were a little disappointed. They still hoped that their master, Altair, could pass the S-class mage promotion trial of Fairy Tail. No, I'm just saying it's possible. No one will know the final result until the exam is over. Kaina looked at Grey and Lion, who were serious, and waved her hands again and again. These were just her guesses. How about this? Why don't I do the math for you guys, do a good divination, and see who will become an S-class mage this year? Then, Kaina looked at Grey and Lion, who were disappointed with their eyes, and kindly took out the cards for divination. Oh! Upon hearing this, Grey and Lion fixed their eyes on the magic card in Kaina's hand. The person who can eventually become an S-class mage is. Kaina first put the cards in front of her, then closed her eyes, chanted a spell, and then gently flipped open one of the cards on the back. Kaina opened her eyes, staring at the result displayed on the card for a moment. Kaina! What's the final result? Grey and Lion looked at Kaina anxiously and asked. Ugh, maybe my divination is wrong. After hearing Grey and Lion's question, Kaina smiled a little guilty. Even if it's a wrong result, just tell me. Grey looked at Kaina anxiously. Even if it was a wrong result, he would really like to hear it. Yes. Kaina. The same was true for Lion. In fact, it was okay for Kaina not to do divination, and they would not be curious. Now that Kaina had performed the divination, they couldn't help being curious in their hearts, and they really wanted to know the result, no matter whether the result was correct or not. Okay. You really can't help it. Kaina smiled helplessly after hearing what Grey and Lion said, and then watched the two tell the result of divination. My divination shows that this year's Fairy Tail S-class will be either Evan or Altair. Kaina's divination couldn't be accurate. What she predicted was the winner of this year's Fairy Tail S-class promotion trial, and the final result was completely different from what Kaina thought in her heart. Lion and Grey's eyes widened immediately after listening to Kaina's words. No way. Could it be that Urza or Laxus passed the S-class promotion trial? What will this year's assessment be? Anyway, it shouldn't be a competition, otherwise, how could Evan and Altair lose? After hearing the results of Kaina's divination, Grey and Lion began to discuss. Just listen to it. The result of my divination may not be right. Kaina looked at Grey and Lion, who were discussing together, and smiled awkwardly. To be honest, she didn't believe the result of this divination. In Kaina's eyes, this year's S-class mage is definitely a choice between Evan and Altair, and there is no other possibility. Chapter 75, Evan in Action. Deep in the unknown woods, in this dark corner without sunlight, a dark guild called the Fangs of the Snake was established here. Ha ha ha. Drink, brothers. I heard that you killed a few mage from the legal guild. That's, the babies of the legal guild, how could they be our opponents? In the guild, a group of mage from the dark guild drank heavily and sang songs. Then they chatted leisurely, mostly talking about some things in the magic world, such as who is so powerful, who killed a certain powerful mage from the legal guild and so on. Haha. In the deepest part of the guild, a tall and thin man looked at the members of his guild, drinking wine calmly. He is the guild master, and he is also an S-class criminal who was rewarded by the Magic Council. At this moment, he looked at the incomparably prosperous scene of hundreds of people drinking and chatting in front of him, and his heart jumped with joy. This is the guild he has spent several years of energy to form with one hand, and it is precisely because he has not only impressive strength, but also because of being the boss of hundreds of mages, he can have his own place in the dark magic world. Take time to destroy a certain guild for fun. Raising soldiers for 1,000 days and using them for a while. It's time to let these little devils bleed for me. While drinking, the tall and thin man looked at his subordinates, thinking. I heard that Fairy Tail has been in the limelight recently, and even that idiot Karaka has been defeated by Fairy Tail. Why don't we just use them? If I kill them, maybe I will completely become famous mage in the magic world and I can get the appreciation. He. The tall and thin man thought about it, then smiled evilly and made a series of creepy sounds. Yes. Just as the thin and tall man was thinking about whether to take the fairy tale, his sharp ears moved slightly, and with his amazing hearing, he caught a whistling sound. The tall and thin man was taken aback for a moment. He raised his head subconsciously, and looked at the ceiling above his head. Is something coming? The tall and thin man narrowed his eyes, but he didn't take it seriously. After all, this was his guild, so what danger could there be? Could it be that a meteorite fell from the sky and hit him? Just when this thin and tall man was thinking so. In the next second, the hundreds of square meter ceiling of their guild shattered instantly, revealing a huge rock burning with flames. Shouldn't it be? The moment the tall and thin man looked at the rock, his pupils trembled. He subconsciously used his strongest defensive magic, but it was too late. Boom! With a bang! The entire Dark Guild Fang of the Snake and its 137 members were all conquered by this overbearing power. In the sky, a young man stood quietly out of thin air like this. He looked at the ruined guild below him, took out a reward list from the backpack behind him, and ticked it lightly. S-Class Quest, the quest to crusade against the fangs of the snake is completed. The young man whispered to himself. After confirming that all the fangs of the snake had been defeated, he directly notified the soldiers of the nearby Magic Council to clean up the scene, and then he turned into a golden light and disappeared in the blink of an eye. A few hours later, a group of soldiers from the Magic Council just arrived. What? Can humans do this? Whose hand doing is it? When a group of soldiers looked at the guild that had been turned into a deep pit by a huge meteorite, and the members of the Dark Guild who were unconscious, their eyes widened. Hey! One of the older-looking soldiers of the Magic Council looked at the miserable appearance of the dark mages in front of him, took out a cigarette from his arms, and took a deep puff. While puffing, he spoke to the recruits beside him. This is already the 7th Dark Guild destroyed by a meteorite this month. As for the person who destroyed them, there is no mistake, it is the Fairy Tail member, Evan, known as Collapsing Star. In the legend, do you know Evan, who destroys all enemies with real celestial magic? I heard that the opponents who fought against Evan will not end well. That miserable appearance is comparable to that of the mage who is known as the strongest in the West, Gildarts. When a soldier heard this, he immediately preached in shock. Hey! Stop talking nonsense, you guys move this meteorite away with all your strength, the people who are under the pressure at this moment will die after a while. The veteran looked at the meteorite just in front of him that pressed all the mages of the Dark Guild under him, and opened his mouth to spit out another cloud of white smoke. In the eyes of the veterans, that Evan is very powerful. The other party maimed everyone but did not kill anyone. After the crusade against the Dark Guild, it will immediately notify the Magic Council so that the Magic Council can also have an extra share. Merit. This made all the councillors who were very irritable towards Evan lose their temper. After all, performance matters. You must know that the mages of these dark guilds were arrested by the Magic Council. That Evan's control over celestial magic is getting stronger and stronger. He can actually manipulate the meteorite and destroy the guild without affecting the surrounding area. He's a complete monster. With the speed of his destruction of the dark mage, plus this precise, not destroying the surrounding manipulative techniques, next year's 10 wizard saints will definitely be him. The veteran was thoughtful. Based on his experience, the current Evan has a 90% chance of winning the position of the 10 wizard saints next year. At that time, including Makarov and Altair who became the 10 wizard saints this year, there are 3 10s wizard saints in one guild. Then count the reclusive senior. Hehe, by then, there will be nothing in the entire Ishgar that can stop Fairy Tail from advancing. Forget it, it's none of my business anyway. The veteran sighed, and then stopped thinking about these things, because these things have nothing to do with him as a small soldier captain, they are things that the members of the council should worry about. At the same time, in the mountains about 80 kilometers away from the Dark Guild Fang of the Snake. Roar! A huge orc the size of a mountain, wearing animal skins and holding a wooden club, was roaring towards a caravan of about 30 people. Oops! It's a wild giant! The guards of the caravan looked at the huge roaring monsters in front of them, and they were sweating wildly. The only wild giants with a height of more than 30 meters and super high magic resistance in front of them were the S-class mage in the legal guild. They are just ordinary guards who know a little about magic, and they are not the opponents of the giants in front of them at all. Boom! Just when the guards were panicking, the giant moved, and he quickly swung the stick in his hand, knocking the 5 guards into the air in an instant, and landed on the rocky mountain aside. Those guards who were blown away were all bloody. Damn it! Run away with Miss! The middle-aged man who looked like the captain of the guard, shouted. When he saw the giant in front of him that could kill 5 of them with one blow, cold sweat continued to flow down his neck, but as a knight, he still ordered the guards behind them protect their miss and escape. After all, it is the duty of these guards to protect the safety of their mix. Captain! What do you do if we run away? The guards heard the words, looked at the middle-aged chief guard, and asked. I'm holding him here. The middle-aged head guard took out his sword and pointed it at the giant in front of him. He gritted his teeth and tensed his nerves. Although the giant in front of him made his scalp feel numb, the responsibilities prevented him from running.